Green Spring Phase 4. There are 11 lots being proposed in this phase, and the area coverage is 5.54 acres. Again, the zoning is the R18, which is single family residential, 8,000 square foot minimum. Again, the preliminary plat was approved on the 27th of August of 2014. Staff's reviewed this proposed Phase 4 and finds that the final plat conforms to the approved preliminary plat. The Planning Commission also reviewed this request last week at their October 4th meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval for the final plat for the reserve at Green Spring Phase 4 subdivision to the City Council, and based on the findings, subject to, again, the standard 5 conditions. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have on Phase 4 of the reserve. And it is the final phase of the reserve. This will be it.
No comments, questions? Okay.
Not Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the final plat for the terraces, or what, the reserve at Green Springs Phase 4. Also.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Ivy, aye.
Granger, aye.
Ellison, aye.
Nice and aye.
Turek, aye.
All right, that's also approved. Move on to item C, consideration to approve the final plat for the terraces at Green Spring Phase 4, located approximately Concord Parkway and Vista Spring Drive. Same applicant, Jim Range Brennan Holdings, number 100 LLC.
Moving across Concord Parkway, we're now looking at the terrace at Green Spring Phase 4. This particular phase of this subdivision is proposing 15 lots. The area coverage is 5.94 acres. Again, the zoning at this particular area is the R18, single family residential, 8,000 square foot minimum. This preliminary plat was also approved on August 27th of 2014. Staff has found that the proposed final plat conforms to the approved preliminary plat. The Planning Commission again reviewed the request last week on their October 4th meeting. They unanimously recommended approval of the final plat for the terraces at Green Spring Phase 4 subdivision onto the City Council with the standard findings and the standard 5 conditions for a final plat. I'd answer any questions on terraces final phase as well.
Without any further questions, I'd make a motion to approve the final plat for the terraces at Green Springs Phase 4.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Ivy, aye.
Granger, aye.
Ellison, aye.
Nice and aye.
Turek, aye.
All right, that is also approved. Item D, consideration to approve the final plat for the villas at Green Spring Phase 1, located approximately Washington Parkway and Green Spring Drive. Again, the same applicant.
Application for Phase 1's final plat at the villas at Green Spring. This particular phase of the subdivision is proposing 54 lots. The area coverage is 15.10 acres. The zoning at this particular location is PUD, the planned unit development. The preliminary plat for the villas at Green Spring was approved back on March 8th, earlier this year, 2017. Staff reviewed the requested proposal on the final plat and finds that it conforms to the approved preliminary plat, and the Planning Commission reviewed it again last week at their October 4th meeting. Planning Commission once again unanimously recommended approval of the final plat for the villas at Green Spring Phase 1 onto the City Council with the standard findings and the standard 5 conditions. Glad to answer any questions if you have on this final plat of the night. Just to make note, I'm excited for this one because this gets us Green Spring Drive all the way to the end and the beginning of Washington Parkway on this west end. So
Yeah,
we've been
puts
waiting
us
for
up
this
against-
intersection for a long time.
Puts us to the where there really is a tortoise habitat.
Yes, as it stands today. No, this is the one that everybody didn't know this was the line that's been out there for a long time. It's just the fences were deceiving because they'd put them out in
Very
staggering.
deceiving. A lot of people got deceived.
They
by
did
those
because of the way
fences.
the fences got put in. But this has been the line for quite a while. I think
Right.
since the original date.
I would imagine it probably will hold as we
Yeah.
see what's happening with things there.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve the final plat for the Villas at Green Spring Phase 1, located at approximately Washington Parkway and Green Springs Drive.
I'll
Oh.
second.
A motion and a second.
Eric, aye.
I voted nay at the preliminary, and so I feel like out of principle, I should vote nay.
Belliston, aye.
Granger, nay.
Ivy, aye.
That is approved 3-2. Item 8, excuse me, public hearings. Public hearing for consideration to approve a zone change request Z-17-25 to create a new PUD, planned unit development, located approximately Bella Vista Drive. Applicant SJ Property Holdings, LLC.
There. So give me just. Okay, we're doing Z25, right? Okay. Yay. Start with this one and move our way through. The applicant is requesting approval to change the zoning of approximately 78.712 acres. Requested change is from the current zoning of planned unit development to a proposed new planned unit development. The PUD request is for the purpose of developing the parcel into a residential project consisting of 340 dwellings in the form of 80 apartments, 69 townhomes, and 191 single-family detached units. The name of the proposed development would be Sunwood at Bella Vista. The general plan land use designation for this location is medium high density residential on the north side of Bonnie Lane, which carries the density ratio of 7 to 12 dwelling units per acre. And then south of Bonnie Lane is medium density residential, which carries 4.5 to 6 dwelling units per acre density ratio. The surrounding zoning to this parcel is RA2 and C2 to the north, PUD to the west and east, and open space with R18 to the south. Density ratio for this proposed development of the project is 7.4 dwelling units per acre of the overall project. Well within the designated ratio set forth in the general plan with these two mixed areas on this location. This project's been through the zoning application process a few times. You're very familiar with it over the last couple of probably year and a half. This latest proposal is attempting to put into its design all the requested items from past denials. The applicant has indeed tried to have a variety of housing types and designs from apartment units to townhomes to two types of single-family development options, and one's a smaller unit and one's a larger unit. Staff's reviewed the new proposal, finding it to be a much better design and layout from the earlier proposals and for the entire property. Two concerns included collected efforts to gain second access street to 1100 East. That has always been a question since we've looked at this. Still, there's negotiations still going on with Winter Haven and Ridge Point and then this particular applicant as well, just to let you know where those stand. I'm going to skip because they did switch. If you saw my report, I wanted to see more amenity, and they did increase that. This particular blow-up area was added when it went to the Planning Commission, so that's my report. He did strike that, but I left it in for you. But they did increase adding another pool and all this area from the original. So this is the amenity area that's been added on and probably doubled from what the project was when it first came in for its application. So staff feels much better about this particular amenity area at this time. Staff's reviewed the requested zone change, finds it to conform to the general plan and the zoning ordinance. Planning Commission reviewed the request at their September 20th meeting. The Planning Commission, by a vote of 4-1, recommended approval of Z-17-25 for the zone change request from the old planned unit development to the proposed new planned unit development to the City Council based on the findings and subject to the conditions. And there's 12 of them there in your report. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have for me as it relates to this proposed zone change. If I may, while you're thinking, I'll just kind of scroll through and we'll bring up some of the other exhibits as it relates to the project. This one pretty much lets you kind of see all the total numbers of the units, et cetera, and how they lie out. With the apartments being here, extra boat and trailer storage, and that kind of comes into effect with your next proposed zone change. This is part of the project that they proposed for that. And then you have
Has the density per acre changed much?
Well, the units, the last time it was before you folks, they had, I think, 345 units. It's down to 340. So there's 5 units, folks. Yes, it has changed is the answer to that question. So now it did change in a lot in the design of those units is the big difference to a lot more of the single family detached units that you can see the pads here and throughout here where they used to be 3+, et cetera. So yeah, the numbers may be, but it's a different style than what was proposed earlier. Also, these are the elevations. The triplexes that you see are up here in the corner. This is what they will look like. It's got what's referred to as the Craftsman style finish now. And also then the apartment complex looks like this.
Drew, would you expound on what the roofing materials and siding materials are in those photos, please?
And I'm not sure exactly what they use. They can either use the concrete composite horizontal siding, or it could be whatever other product, but it's going to be a horizontal siding or a vertical siding. This is going to be a batten board kind of finish that you see around these windows. There will be some stone, a little bit of stucco mixed in, a kind of variety of what you know, in the Craftsman style there. Again, will be variety of a little bit of stone on it. The roof, I'm not sure if it's going to be dark and I don't know if it's asphalt shingles or tile slates on that, because with the Craftsman you can do either or. We probably could let the applicant address what the exact roofing might be. But again, it'll just be, like I say, a variety, and that could again be either that, you know, the hardy board, or it could be a masonite kind of siding on that. We just get into the style of how it looks and things. So
Just hard to tell on the picture.
it is. Yeah. So, and then the apartments are here. I wanted to make sure you saw a variety of them as well. Again, there are 5 complexes with 16 units in each. So that means there will be 8 above and 8 below, making up those 5 to make the 80 in the apartment area. And then here's the 3 different styles of homes that you will see on those detached units that are throughout the project, and they kind of gave you an idea of the floor plans and how they'll lay out. So there's your elevations, the variety of them throughout the project as it relates to that. So that covers at least a lot of the exhibits. So I'll go back to being glad to answer. Now, I will point out, in case you didn't notice it, you might wonder what this little thing down in the corner is. These are 6 units that'll actually, because their property goes all the way behind Horizons West, Cherokee Springs, and comes out actually on 300 East. And with that flat area out there, they wanted to put in a fourplex and a duplex out there as part of their project as well. I do want to point that out. That wasn't on their original proposals that they brought you, but this one, they've added these 6 units out here on 300 East. So. I keep saying I'll answer any questions, and I keep jumping in. So I think I'm done right now, and I'll be glad to answer anything you might have for me.
Any questions for Drew? Would you like to address the applicant? Any questions for the applicant?
In a minute, probably.
Okay. All right, then we'll open it up. It is a public hearing. And we invite any and all that would like to participate. We would appreciate civility. We'd appreciate your comments and your questions. And just to remind you that the decision will not be made tonight, but the council will take 2 weeks to deliberate. So come on up. Thank you.
Would it be okay if I used your Elmo?
Absolutely. Would you please state your name for the record?
My name is Arthur Reed. I live in Bella Vista. In the last Planning Commission meeting, some points were made that were misleading and questionable, and I'd like to try and clarify those. First, only the townhouse and single-family homes were shown to the commission at that meeting. No elevations were shown of the overnight apartment units that make up a large part of the proposed development. So I took a guess at what they would look like given this description on the plot plan. These units that are located on the west and east These units that are located on the west and east end and the front of Bella Vista Drive and the development. On these small lots, the garages face the street and the entrance is from the back. And so the only view seen from the street is the garage. There is no entry door on the street side.
That's not what we're seeing. That's not what I'm seeing. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because they didn't show these, I guessed, on their description. Each unit has a garage on the first floor with a small entrance that one can only assume includes the steps to the living space, which is on the second floor. The developer and most on the Planning Commission decided that these would be purchased by snowbirds. That's absolutely false. No one over the age of 50 will purchase a unit that requires them to go up and down a flight of stairs every time they enter the home, when they bring the groceries in or take the trash out or go to bed. The same goes for the second story on the large apartment complexes and the townhomes and two-story single-family homes shown by the developer. Nine of these overnight apartment unit driveways back onto the busy street that is Bella Vista Drive. That means with cars parked on the east side of the road, which they will be because there's insufficient parking nearby the rental units for visitors. There's insufficient parking nearby the rental unit for visitors, combined with the cars backing out of the driveways on Bella Vista, on the west side of Bella Vista Drive. Backing cars that must cross the lane of traffic coming into the development and then back into the lane of traffic that is exiting the development. This creates a bottleneck. That not only blocks the main flow of traffic, but is dangerous. This danger was brought up at the Planning Commission meeting, but dismissed for no reason. This is a danger, and for that reason, the project should be questioned. Points were also made that the marketplace would determine if the overnight vacation rentals would work. And it was determined that we should just have to wait and see how that works out. So it should be given a chance. This is misleading and ignores the facts. By the developer's own numbers, they expect that only up to 40% of the units will be rented at one time. That's up to 40%. So 40% is the maximum number. That means that anyone who purchases a unit with the intention of renting it, as was the example given by the developer, that individual will only have a 40% chance of renting it. Why? Obviously, because the Washington market is overly saturated with overnight rentals, to the extent that less than 40% are rented at any one given time. Which bodes the question, why does Washington need more overnight rentals at this time when it is unable to even come close to filling 1/2 of the existing rental units available? This is not
a public hearing for the overnight rentals. We have to hold off.
Okay, then I'll skip and talk about that later.
Yeah, I apologize.
I'm sorry. One Planning Commission member indicated that we should have looked at the zoning of the area before we purchased. If we didn't like what was there, we shouldn't have brought it up. That's a fair question. However, when we bought, the area south of Telegraph was zoned for a miniature golf course and a campground, both of which were not going to be built. So this statement was unfortunate. But it may suggest an underlying issue that should be addressed. The Bella Vista development does have nice homes. I have a nice home. There are some, however, that are much nicer than mine. When the final phase is developed, there will be some that are a lot nicer than mine. In all of our neighborhoods, we can find homes nicer than ours and perhaps some not as nice. That issue should not be a problem. I have lived here for 3 years, and I've had the opportunity to personally know people that live in the trailer homes that are on the north side of Telegraph, an area we refer to as North Telegraph out of respect for the many good people that live there. I have also gotten to know the families that live in the Bella Vista Park condos and on Staley Hill. These areas are all made up of good people, and I enjoy their association. So please, Just because I live on a hill with nice homes, don't assume that I am looking down negatively on other neighborhoods. We are all residents of Washington and want the best for our community. The developer spoke of the increase in population expected for the total St. George area. We have all read these numbers. The developer went on to state that because of this growth, their development would be a great place for people to stay while they looked for someplace else they would like to live. Is this what we want Washington and Telegraph to become? A stop-off place for people to stay for a night, a hotel room, or an overnight vacation mecca that caters to t-shirt shops and other tourist trinket businesses, like what has happened in Sedona, Arizona. As the development along Telegraph expands east, and we all know it will, sod farm, RV parking, and storage units will give way to other commercial development. So rather than attract overnight junk tourist shops, it would be far better if we had well-developed malls on a tree-lined street, malls with good businesses that family neighborhoods attract. I want the area of South Telegraph developed, as I am sure everyone here does. The last time I spoke to this council, after I completed my comments, Mr. Mayor, you asked, what about the need for low-income housing? I apologize for not making myself more clear at that time, so I'd like to address that question. If this area is developed to meet its full potential, as mentioned by the City Council in earlier meetings, the development should be feathered from the front along what is now borders storage and RV parking, up to the base of Stone Mountain and along the ridge east of Bella Vista development. Again, as mentioned by the City Council, it should begin with townhomes and duplexes, starter homes, and moving up to larger single-family homes. The area west of Bella Vista Drive lends itself to more 55-plus homes, like the homes in Verizon West, well-kept patio homes. And rather than introduce awkward-looking home styles that belong at the point of the mountain in Salt Lake, with streets arranged by an engineer so that they resemble a computer motherboard, instead, keep the charm of the Southwest Tuscan home style we see in almost all new developments here. A style that attracts people to this area, with streets designed by an architect that bend and make the neighborhood a pleasant place to live. Something that can easily be done by reducing the density. Bella Vista Drive should be planted with foliage, making it an inviting entrance to all of the developments. This should be a place that complements the other enhancements that have in the past and continue to attract families to Washington. The Sullivan Soccer Park, the award-winning recreation center, the beautiful library that is so inviting, and the many other parks, developments, and activities that make this not only a great place, but a special place to live. A place to live, not a place to park overnight. And this area, south of Telegraph, should be a place where families grow roots and contribute to our community. It should be another positive step this council has made that contributes to the future constructive growth of Washington. Finally, as an elected council, you have demonstrated, by the positive direction you have chosen for Washington, a vision for the future of this city. As voters, we entrust in you the responsibility to continue to see that this community, our community, reaches its promise as a place that enriches our lives. Thank you for living up to that trust.
Thank you. Any questions for him? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm a resident of your area. My name is Clyde Wagnon. Back when I was working, I was a mechanical engineer. That's long in the past.
A few days ago, right?
But I recognize this board for its versatility, its depth of knowledge, and I don't want to see anything that's set on a 30 by 46 foot lot. You cannot have a decent park with that. I lived 14 years in Apache Junction in a park much like the one I'm in now, which is Winter Haven. But that park was larger, but we had no lot in there less than 25 by 75 feet. And some that were much larger. That was in the old section of the park when they developers bought that place. They had dreams way beyond their capacity to bring to fruition. They spent too much money. The money was mostly on themselves, private planes, this, that, and the other. I came along on the board to replace that group because they went bankrupt. So I have a little bit of experience, 14 years of living in that park, only in the winter. But I can tell you this, people are not going to come and walk upstairs to spend the night when they have trouble walking. A lot of our people are pushing deals to get along. A lot of them use crutches. I'm very healthy for my age, but I'm unusual. There are people that are healthier, and there are people who are less healthy. But when you think you're going to rent the unrentable, I think they're barking up the wrong tree, and I think this board should be totally against such a development. Also, these places look like barracks. I watched a lot of barracks buildings used for dwellings, apartments. And they're all torn down now. They went to pieces. A barracks building is not a place of enjoyment. Never was, or was meant to be. Some people thought they could build them and get a structure that was cheap, and they could sell apartments in it. It would be fallacious thinking. We don't need any people coming in and putting in something that's not going to be successful. You have to sometimes protect developers from their own ignorance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions?
I had to smile because I've lived in barracks, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
My name is Ron Romney, and I'm a resident of the Bella Vista subdivision. I'd like to start out by thanking you folks for your time and service. Yours is a tough job, not one that especially me would call enjoyable. You have to contend with meetings that sometimes are tedious and onerous, and sometimes with cantankerous people. We've seen that in the past, but I guess your reward will probably come out of this world. I don't know, but we appreciate your service.
Thanks, Ron.
We hope that you received a packet from us that had where we addressed in written form several of the items or that we're concerned about in this community or proposed community. I just want to reiterate what our purpose was there. We really wanted to give you a reference point, something that you could refer to about our point of view. We wanted to offer some suggestions rather than criticisms. We tried to keep our comments rational, factual, and principle driven. And perhaps the biggest principle we tried to address is that let's get this development right, and let's do what's right or the very best for the city. We have the opportunity to do that here, and so let's just do that. We tried to in our packet back up our comments with information and sources, so that it just doesn't appear to be an off the cuff or off the top of our head statement that we've made. We wanted to try to streamline the process, at least from our standpoint, and that is that we've held meetings among ourselves and we've circulated ideas. We now have spokesmen for our group. So we want to do this kind of thing, provide you with what we might call a single voice, but understand that it's not it's not the voice of one person. It's a consensus voice, because we have in fact circulated these ideas and had people comment on them. We haven't had a consensus on everything, but on the major points which we've tried to illustrate to you. So really what you have in what we presented to you is a consensus of a majority of the 134 residents and owners of property in our particular neighborhood. We were a little pressed for time in preparing that, because we asked the question at the planning meeting, when might this come up on the agenda of the city council, and we were told probably not till November, and then we received a 10-day notice, and so we kind of had to hurry, but we hope it's clear. Do you have any questions of us about the things that you may have reviewed in our written response?
Have you met, or when have you met with the developers?
We haven't, relative to this last proposal. They haven't met with us at all. There's been meetings held in the past about prior other things, but they haven't held a meeting, at least with us in the Bella Vista neighborhood. I don't know about the others. I can't address that.
Thank you.
I don't intend to rehash everything that we wrote there. It's there, you have it. But before I begin, I'd like to really invite a representative of the developer to come up and share with us some comments about the proposal. They've had an opportunity to spend a lot of time talking to the city staff and do a lot of things, and we've had precious little from them, heard precious little from them, despite suggestions from some of you folks that they meet and talk to us. Specifically, I'd like to hear from them, what is their philosophy of development? What is their philosophy of doing business? Maybe a mission statement, maybe the mission statement of their business. And I'd like to hear their ideas about how their proposed development will benefit Washington City and how it will contribute to our heritage, pride, and progress. So I would invite them to do that before I continue, if that's okay.
Usually what we do with those situations is allow them to, we take all the public input, and then we allow those developers to come in and address those issues that may have come up. So that's oftentimes why you've seen those developers wait till the tail end.
Well, not to answer that or to do that, but just in general, what is their philosophy, so we can understand.
Well, and we'll give them the chance to address that. We'll give them a chance to do that.
Okay. I'll continue then. We're here listening to the same old tune. It's just a different verse, and this time it's with an increased tempo. And believe me, I'm not hearing an Irving Berlin Classic or a Grammy winner, to be frank with you. I'll just make a short comment about the 5 primary issues that we see with the proposal and that we've identified in our written comments to you. Density. There's simply too many units. And what is proposed produces a highly congested and unsafe environment. You had some things shown to you about that. The last proposal that was officially brought to the council by these same people was rejected. And with several comments relating to the fact that there were too many units being proposed. But now they're asking for, I don't know, even more. I get lost in the proposals and how that all progressed, frankly. So I don't know. It just seems to me that the boxes are getting pushed around in a different form, but it all pretty much comes out the same with nothing much different. The answer was no before, so we think that it should be again. Let's talk about safety. They seem to have ignored what was seemingly decided upon and agreed upon in a previous presentation, especially about the backing of cars onto the major thoroughfare. They even in one of their iterations addressed that and didn't have any garages that faced out onto Bella Vista Drive and that kind of thing. But now in this last proposal, that seems to have been forgotten. Okay, and it's disappeared from the thing. Relative to safety, I just like you to think about someone who maybe lives there, a young mother who lives over on the far corner of this thing, who wants to go to the pool on the other side and has to walk down the middle of a narrow street without a sidewalk, cross over Bella Vista, it's going to be a very busy street, go walking in the middle of the street for another lane, cross over another busy street, Bonnie Lane. That's going to be before they can get to the pool and to the amenities are there. That just doesn't seem to be as a very safe thing. So the access, well, this issue is still alive and well. It's still the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room. But the question is how can all of the people and the cars who will be in this relatively small space get in and out? I don't understand it. The only solution that we seem to have been brought brings with it its own problems and issues. So that's a question. Compliance. As we've tried to study how subdivisions are supposed to be planned and built in the city of Washington and looked at the regulations, we see here in this proposal that these folks want to ignore some of the rules. They want to diminish others. They certainly want to stretch some of them to their best advantage. And frankly, they haven't wanted to engage us, at least our neighborhood, in any kind of dialogue to help overcome or resolve those issues. We kind of think we all ought to start, and you probably have a better understanding than we do, what the rules are, and then comply with those rules. And we've tried to point out some of those issues in our comment. The last thing is compatibility. They want to come in and build something that's of a completely different architectural style and kind of shoehorn it into to an area that will be a stark contrast to all of the things that surround it. There hasn't anybody who lives near there who stood at this podium when they had the opportunity and says, wow, this is a great idea. We just love it. We just love this concept. If you want to give the people what they want, why not give the people who live near it or who are members of the community what they want? Those that have to live near the place and live with it every day, give them what they want. And those that live in this region, give them what they bought. Give them what they want. What are they buying now? It's not something that's starkly different those types of things, if that's what you want, are available in other places. It's not that it's not unavailable to them. It's just not in a place where there's a stark contrast to everything else. Well, to close, I just hope that you'll disapprove the proposal for this development. At this point in time, the way it's presented, the negatives far outweigh the positives, and we don't see many positive solutions or alternatives to the negatives being offered. And in fact, some of the negatives seem to be ignored in our estimation. So thank you for your time and attention.
Thanks, Mr. Romney. Any questions for Ron?
No.
My name is Mary Spears, and I live at 518 Sienna Drive in Villa Vista. We have been out of town for a while, and I know that they've been working together on a plan together, but I'd like to present two ideas that have just come to me in the last little while. Number one, we just came from California in a situation where the homes were constructed in this very same manner. The street was very narrow, and as we drove in, the person who was across the street, car broke down in the middle. That made it so that I would have to carry the groceries from the end of the street clear to the unit in the middle. The streets are too narrow for the number of cars to go in and out. You sometimes have to make a wide turn to turn your car around to get it back out. It was very cumbersome and very dangerous. Also, if I added it, there would be 334 cars probably, because there are 334 units. But as I noticed yesterday, we were driving along Bluff Road over here. There are townhouses, and I looked over, here's the townhouses, the backside of the townhouses running along Bluff Road, and the road was completely locked in with cars. And I said, oh, this must be a park and ride. No, it wasn't, because I went back that last night. Those cars were still there, and when I just went before, there's a few cars that have come and go. There were 36 cars parked on the street that belonged to those townhouses. And so I rode around the other side, and then I realized some of the townhouses were from 2 to 4 bedrooms. Well, if you have 2 to 4 bedrooms, you probably have 2 or 3 kids. And you know what the garage becomes? It becomes your storage unit. So the car gets parked on the driveway, or it gets parked in the access way. Very, very dangerous. How do you get in and out if there's what if there's a fire, like in California, and everybody decides to come out of their garage at the same time? It is absolutely a hazard for anybody living in there. Okay, so we have 335 cars there. I times that by twice, because in most driveways, there was a car in the driveway and one in front. So that's 700 cars, let's see, 725 cars approximately that you've got in this area. That's not counting how many people are going to live in the apartments. This day and time, if I have 4 adults that live in an apartment and they all have a car, then that's 4. So we have 80 apartments, and then you can add that many more cars trying to get out of this road. And that dog walk is on one of the most busiest roads in this whole intersection. I wouldn't allow my child to go down there to walk their dog in that corner for anything at all, because it is so crowded with cars and no way to get out of there. How would we get out of there if there was an emergency? That doesn't count the 200 cars on one side of up the hill and probably another 150 on the other top. You have almost 1,000 cars in this section trying to get out of town. You've seen what's happened in California with all the fires. You wouldn't be able to even get yourself out of the house because you couldn't get out of these narrow strips that they've built to put your car. It doesn't work. I've just been in that situation. It's very, very difficult. And we keep pounding on safety, and about too many places in a small area for people to get around in is dangerous. And I'm a senior, which you probably can't tell, but I cannot, to turn sometimes is very difficult. I can see how difficult this whole situation would, and I wouldn't buy anything I had to walk upstairs to get into. So I think that the marketing is not straight for what's supposed to be taking place. And that's, I mean, after I saw what yesterday, all the cars parked on the street because they couldn't park in their garage and they had 2 or 3 cars, they'll be all up and down this. Who's going to get out 700 cars out of that Bella Vista Drive with all those cars parked up and down? It's not going to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Wayne Felix. I live in Horizon West, just directly west of their border on the west side. Things that were hashed over last time they went through this, they're all the same. I'm concerned though, this time when they showed the pictures of some of those housing with all the living to be up on the second floor, and they're within 10 feet of the wall of where we live. They might as well come over and join us. It just sounds horrible. But the biggest issue we have, and I don't think has been, it hasn't been considered, we're a senior housing area. Cherokee Spring is a senior housing area, which is down below us, to west of us, and of course, Winter Haven. We've been there for 30 years. The access to Telegraph is still very difficult already, and it's never been addressed what the access is going to be for these senior housing areas. That's already difficult. There's going to be some wrecks. There's going to be some lawsuits. I really fear. And the other big problem, we already have a drainage problem over on our the south wall. That the city has a drainage ditch there. It's never been taken care of. We already are replacing walls. It's going to be worse. Something has to be done with that. I respect you guys and your job, but this housing area, it'd be wonderful if they had all single home areas in there. It'd be a wonderful spot. It'd be a beautiful spot, but this is not. And those buildings they're proposing to put up, they do look like barracks to me. And I thank you for your attention and for your help.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Hi, my name's Bob Samar. I live on Sienna Drive in Bella Vista. I'm looking at all the conversation, and it's a very complicated situation. And I can appreciate that, it's a tough decision sometimes to do that. But I just wanted to tell you that I'm a kind of a simple person, and I walk my dogs an hour every day in the morning. And I go to all these great places in Green Springs, in Sienna Hills, Coral Canyon. I walk in all those places. It's extremely pleasant. It's pretty well laid out, very similarly. It seems to work for those communities. And then I look at some of the elevations and the layouts that are being proposed for this area. I just can't imagine that we would really want a section right on Telegraph entering the city to look like that. You would think you would want it to look like all those other areas like Green Springs and Coral Canyon, so that it's a more continuous looking look to Washington City. And I just encourage you to think more even simply about it. Is that really what you want that area to look like down there? Thank you.
Thank you.
I live in Bella Vista. You've heard testimonies tonight. There's approximately 145 people in Bella Vista now. They want to start phase 4. But you know what? They can't start phase 4 because of the traffic. There has to be another exit to allow the cars to get out. And now they're talking about blocking the one exit now with more cars and the cars trying to get out. So it seems to me that if you pass this, you're just defeating your own laws. Thank you.
Thank you.
Name is Doug Greenwood. I moved down here a year ago from Bountiful, which is north of Salt Lake City. Came down to Horizons West to live in a 55-plus retirement community. And if this proposed project goes through, I'll be looking out my back window and straight up into one of those, I don't know what you want to call them. I'm calling them a cracker box, because that's what it looks like to me. As I look up, I'll have somebody looking straight down at me. I didn't move down here to live next to anything but a 55-plus community. It's been mentioned before, Cherokee Springs, Horizons West, and Bella Vista, Winter Haven are all 55-plus. I just do not see that it makes sense to put anything but a 55-plus community in this area, and 55-plus single unit community in this area. So if this proposal goes through, I hate to say, but I will be putting my unit up for sale and moving on. So I hope you folks make the right decision and vote against this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Do you want to hear from the developer?
Yes, please.
Come on up, sir.
Whoever wants to address some of those,
We've got one gentleman that wants to, if you don't mind, behind you.
Find it? Pardon? Oh, okay.
Thank
Come
you.
on up.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
I'm Bob Evans, and I live in Horizons West, and I live on that back fence that goes across between the two units things there. And back in a couple of meetings back there, the two gentlemen that used to sit there, I guess he was an Oriental, I don't remember his name, and the guy next to him kind of talked to this thing, and they decided, I thought, maybe I misunderstood, that when they decided to take the rental things out of that section down through there, and they would be like single units clear across there, single down. And now they're going to put 2-story, and I have the same thing like him. My house is sitting in the corner this way, and if they put those 2-story buildings across my fence, my property line on that side's over 100 foot long, so there's 3 units going to be in there. And if they put those 2-story buildings in there, they're going to be looking right in my patio door and in my side window. And I think it should still stay single. And then he said back there that the offsets, I guess he understood, is only 10 foot, but they told me at one time those houses would be 20 feet off that fence. So have they changed that? Does anybody know?
trying to remember off that back wall, aren't they 10-foot offsets?
They said it'd be 20.
Are we referring to the last planning commission meeting?
Oh, no, this was 2 or 3 meetings back. But the engineer lady told us that those would be 20-foot offsets.
Well, we probably have to go look at prior applications, whether or
Maybe
not they had a 20-foot setback. I don't,
20 feet.
they might have at one point. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll ask the applicants.
All right. But, you know,
No,
and so,
it's not now.
And what we're talking about now has nothing to do with any rentals. That's coming.
oh,
on the
our
next one,
rentals,
so.
well, they took the rentals out of our section, but then those 2 gentlemen there kind of agreed that, you know, we had as much right on this side of the fence as they had on this side. Because when it first started out, we had no rights. These people over here could do anything they wanted to do. And they decided that that wasn't going to work. But my understanding that those would all be single floor
Single family units.
in that section. And now they're telling us they can put these 2-story things, which I'm the same as the rest of them. Old people can't get up and down those dang things. And, but that's kind of my. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Any questions for Mr. Evans? Thank you.
I don't think you should step away.
Thank you.
Hello, Council. Brandy Walker with Civil Science representing the applicant. Sorry. Good to see you all again. I tried to write notes down to address the comments that were given by the neighbors. I do want to note, we've had several meetings with the neighbors throughout the process. As we started this process, our first official application was filed in August of 2016. So we've been well at this for well over a year. We've had several meetings with the neighbors in private, as it's not required, but we felt it was necessary. We've developed, they complain because we have too many plans. We feel that it's grown and progressed in a positive manner. That's needed to happen. We're grateful for that. As far as Mr. Romney's comments, we're unaware of what you guys received. They have not reached out to us. So what's in your packet, his 5 areas of concern, they've not contacted me or the owner on this project regarding what those concerns may be. So I took notes. He talked about density, access, compliance, and compatibility. I didn't quite catch the 5th one. I think he said there was 5. But I do want to note that we've had 2 council workshop meetings since our last official application to this application now, which those neighbors were in attendance. That's pretty much the reason as well that we didn't reach out to them again. When he says, give the people what they want, that's where our meetings go with the neighbors, is what they want. So at that point in the game, we've heard what they have to say. To address density, as Drew's
Brandy,
staff has pointed out.
Excuse me, I don't mean to stop you, but
Oh, please.
don't they have a right to have a concern and interest and they're vested in
1000%.
this?
And if we showed a picture of where we were when we started back in August of 16 till now, our project is completely changed. And like I said, in a positive way to address the neighbors' concerns. And I believe fully, I have vacant property around my house and it concerns me what goes in there. In fact, I've had 2 schools pop in and some neighbors love the schools. Me personally, I don't like the schools. They bring traffic. My kids don't attend those schools, so it's not really a benefit. But so is there a perfect product to fit next to my personal home? No, I want my farm field. I live out in the middle of the fields. But do I get that? No. Unfortunately, stuff develops and it's sad to see green fields go. And that's why we've tried to be as compatible as we can with these neighbors and meet their concerns. Some of their concerns are really realistic and genuine, and others, I feel that maybe it's a misunderstanding of information. I know that we've completed a full traffic study to the level that's definitely not required at this point in the process, and Public Works has had a chance to review it. We've met with the traffic engineer and Public Works several times to address traffic on Bella Vista, to address the traffic concerns of 1100 East. We feel that we're finally reached, a point where we know what we're doing, we know how to handle it. If the neighbors are concerned about traffic now being a problem, development actually fixes traffic issues to some extent, because the developer is required per the traffic study to implement, whether it's lights. We have to, before we can do anything within our development, we have to provide a turn lane on Telegraph into Bella Vista. I mean, that's an immediate benefit to the neighbors now. And we've got trigger points within our study that, tell when the light has to go in, where the light's going to be. Is it Bella Vista or is it 1100 East? I know that there's traffic concerns coming from the north into Telegraph off 1100. So I don't really want to, you guys, you've seen our application before, so I don't really want to harp on anything too much. If you guys have questions, just to real quick touch on the gentleman's concern about setbacks adjacent to his property. At one point, those were large townhome units, multifamily attached. Those have been eliminated. Nowhere in our project does multifamily abut or come close to existing residents. We've pulled it all inward and completely eliminated around the exterior of the project as to not impact the adjacent developments. So we now have single family along his boundary. The renderings that Drew had on the overhead do show a single level home. So if you look at the footprint, I don't know how legible it is in your packet, you can see that even in our 2 stories, the living space is still downstairs. So we do have the option to do a single level. Once again, it's market driven, depending on where people want to go with that. I mean, if they're 55 and older, they're probably not going to pick the 2-story unit. So the house setback, because we are PD to PD, it is 10 feet. When we originally applied and we had the multifamily unit, the attached townhome, I want to say, I don't on the record, I do believe we had the 20-foot rear setback because we were trying to be sensitive because we were doing the multifamily. But now we're just the standard 10-foot per the PD zone. I don't know if you guys have any questions for me.
Brandy, one idea I want to throw at you and see what the effect would be. Where you've got your boat and trailer parking, what if that were to flop to the other side of your apartment? So you shifted your apartments here and put that between your apartments and your other homes to where it could be much better utilized by the project as a whole. Right now it sits off to the side where really the apartments are. Yes. So you shift your apartments here and put that parking more centrally located to the homes, to your apartments, to your amenities across the street. So therefore it's much more usable space that would be used and become an amenity of the project rather than basically a parking lot out in the end that is used very little in my opinion.
Actually lines up pretty good with the amenities across the street. However, we're using it as a buffer zone to what's already there, which is boat and trailer parking.
You're putting an apartment complex next to it. I'd say apartments fit next to boats and trailers.
But I don't know. This single family row of homes would now be looking into the back of a boat storage, which
it's a parking lot.
Yeah.
Basically what you're looking at is a parking lot. So, I mean, they're not staying there long term. They're there for the night or for whatever.
I guess if you owned a unit in here,
then it would be yours.
Yeah,
certainly. And I can see that being a benefit. Having lived in those types of project, you always like a parking area to park an amenity there.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it becomes much more usable and beneficial to the project if it fits. I guess that's my question for you is if that fits.
We're trying to buffer because we can control that storage the way it looks, whether we put a roof, covered parking on one side, trying to buffer the apartments from the existing Bella Vista storage.
Okay. Yeah. Enough said. Also, my other concern, which is one that's been brought up, is the fact that those driveways are on Bella Vista. To me, that's a huge concern. You got people backing in, backing out on that road that you're bringing all your traffic through. Certainly is a concern that I'll bring forward and look for some resolution on.
We're lucky that Bella Vista is it's wider than a standard public street. It is a 60-foot road.
Yeah, I understand that. And then what is the status on 1100? It sounds like it's still in negotiations.
It is. Lester Dalton has done a fabulous job for us. He's been a real big help. He's been working both with the HOA and with us. Oren, the HOA president, has advised us to wait. We've got about another couple weeks before we can schedule an HOA meeting due to them being snowbirds. There's not really enough that they want to hold a meeting until there's enough of them there to weigh in on it.
Okay.
But the plan is in place.
Well, I personally can't see this project going forward until that is resolved, simply because you've got to have a second access with this many units.
Correct.
I guess that's all my questions for you.
Any other council have a question for?
You represent the developer then?
Yeah, he's here tonight as well, so he'll get up and.
Has the developer ever entertained the idea of lower density?
So this project's pretty interesting because, we got commercial development to the north of us. The lots that you see on our north boundary line are zoned and general planned as commercial use. It's actually a platted subdivision, Dan Properties, so they're commercial lots. To the east of us, we have a mobile home park, which is nicely maintained, but it's a mobile home park. To the west of us, we have a tight density PUD. And then to the northeast, we have commercial and boat storage. This property is got some soils that need to be mitigated. There's clay and other issues regarding the soils that need to be dealt with. If you were to go in here and grid it out and put single family lots on the property just to get a lot out of the ground, the time you put your development costs in there and deal with your clays and do everything, I mean, your lot's going to be $100,000 for a 10,000 square foot lot. That's just a lot. So by the time you mitigate and do all the stuff that's necessary, and no offense, Bella Vista up on the hill, they have beautiful homes. Their homes are R18, which is an 8,000 square foot lot. And so there, if you've gone up there and looked, they've maximized every home up there on the lot. I mean, their setbacks are maxed out. They're nice, beautiful homes, but they're sitting on 8,000 square feet. So the lots are tight on their setbacks. If it were me, with all the new development going in Green Springs, you guys approved how many final plats tonight? There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of development going in for nice, beautiful new neighborhoods of single family. We're perched in the middle of a very unique property due to our surroundings. Nobody's going to come in here and buy a large lot at the base of this hill. Bella Vista has amazing views. They're gated. They're well developed. They're nice high-end homes.
Well, I think that could be debatable, what people might want to buy.
Would you buy a 10,000 square foot lot right here?
If it was developed, I might.
So the cost to develop that lot due to mitigating the clay, due to bringing the storm drain in like the gentleman discussed?
Well, I have to say, whatever you say, then I have to. Yeah. I don't know what you're telling me is true.
There's a lot of cost to develop this piece of property. And the developer, at this point in the game, I'm sure is very comfortable.
But those costs has to be part of the business plan. And we
Correct.
understand that that's something that you have to consider. But we have to consider are a little bit different things. To answer some of the questions that I have, I still have a question about density, on-street parking on Bella Vista. That's something that I just can't see happening. 1,100 has to be built out. And then you mentioned that you didn't catch the fifth item that Ron Romney mentioned. He talked about compatibility with contrast.
I've got that one.
With with the surrounding neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And when I looked at those pictures, I mean, not that this is a deal breaker for me, but you think of every other development, they've got stucco, they've got tile. This is Craftsman style. I understand what Craftsman style is, but that this is something that was kind of, to me, I understand that everything's a personal choice, but the area, does it lend to that type of home? I guess if you're,
I probably see that a little bit different because sometimes different styles create character in a community. So
I was addressing more of the concerns of the homeowners that are here tonight.
Right.
I understand that people will buy it if they like it. If they don't, they'll buy somewhere else.
We respect that. We have 78 acres and 340 units proposed they're developing their own fill and their own vibe. Like you go out in Little Valley and they've got communities out there that feel like you've entered their community due to the the nature of the architecture.
If there was a design that would remove the lots backing right up to Horizons West, where we could take the roadway there and inset those houses and take them away from that border with Horizons West, is that something that you'd consider?
We talked about that in Planning Commission. Personally, I feel that a house is less evasive than a roadway. So
unless you live on the other side of that road.
I have lived there. That's why I can
So have I.
physically say that. So if I was Horizons West, I would rather a private resident back me than a public thoroughfare where people are walking on the sidewalk looking over the fence into my yard. But preference, I guess.
Drew, would you mind sharing?
Thanks, Brandy.
Oh, Brandy's right here and Steve's right here. Drew maybe took a little liberties to throw up an idea that I like the idea personally. Would you mind showing us, Drew, what your proposal is there, what your thought is there? To me, for a couple of reasons, I can see some things positive here. Number one, we get rid of the homes on Bella Vista, so we got nothing backing out onto Bella Vista. We've eliminated the houses against Horizons West, which was a concern and given it, and that's not going to be much of a thoroughfare. That's just those homes right there, so you're not going to have a lot of traffic on it. My personal opinion is you could even take the area where you've got your dog park up on the other and actually move your dog park here to where this amenity area is. You've got parking there. It really fits that 55 and older feel who like to have their dogs and walk them and take them into a park area where they could utilize that. To me, it lends itself to a positive community. I don't know, obviously you lose a few units out of it, but it gives a better feel and better idea to me of what we're trying to achieve there. I understand it's springing it on you, Steve, and whatnot, of saying what's your thoughts and feelings about that, but I guess I'd like to hear.
Steve Howcroft. This is the first time I've seen this. I'd like to look at how many lots we lose by doing that.
I think you lose nine right there.
Lots. Like the one with 6 bedrooms.
Well, and I was gonna say, even that little amenity area in the back corner, I wouldn't even be opposed to one more unit going into.
Okay.
I'm way off. 9 isn't enough to me, so.
That's just
in that area.
Yeah. We would look at it, like I say, it's first blush, so it's hard to.
Well, one of the things we try to achieve in PUDs, and you've done a good job over in the other areas, we try to get amenities into the neighborhoods that help the neighborhoods.
Sure.
And see, I see that happening with a dog park in this, to facilitate this little area, where those residents that are there can utilize that. You've got the other one on the other side with those folks, but I'd like you to give that some thought and some idea.
Okay. We'll certainly look at it. I'm not opposed to looking at any of this. You know, part of the issue is trying to get lots on both sides of the street.
Well, the one concern I have is your Bella Vista backing. This way we lose that. You're going to
Yeah.
access it internally. So if Bella Vista flows, we're not going to have the parking issues out there.
That's a real plus. I like that idea. The issue with Horizon West, I like what Brandy said. There's really less intrusion having houses there, and we can certainly put single family along there that don't look over the wall. Single story, yeah. Or we could do 2 stories where there's no windows out the back. They're on the sides so that you can't see down
I
into
just don't see
Bella
much
Vista.
intrusion with what that proposed layout is, because really you've got 5 houses back there. They're going to utilize that road. And so
What are
just
you
don't-
talking about, Jeff?
This plan right here, the ones that you're talking about, that Horizon West.
Yeah, okay.
So when you're
I
talking about the
understand.
intrusion there, I just don't see that happening with, you're gonna have more
Well-
intrusion if you've got those 5 units across there, in my opinion, than you do if you've got a roadway buffering the backs of those homes.
We'll certainly take a look at it.
I'd like some input on it in the next 2 weeks. during
Okay,
the next 2 weeks.
we'll get it to you.
Do you own the property yet?
No, we have it under contract. It's subject to approvals.
I've told you this before. I'm still hung up on what the general plan change that the actual landowner brought forward on density that he represented.
Yeah, I'm so unfamiliar with that. I mean, I've gone back through the minutes and tried to find everything on the density, and there's nothing in the minutes. So we've done our research, and based upon the zoning, we're within the zoning. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I understand it. I just haven't been able to confirm that in the minutes.
I was there, so.
Yeah, well, I'm not questioning, I'm just saying that legally, we're well within the limit, and we've tried to do that. Let me just address some of the comments that have been made here tonight. First off, the plans that this guy showed you, I hope you realize that's kind of like fake news. That isn't at all what we're going to sell. I realize that we can't build stuff like that and sell it. I've been doing this for 40 years, and if we built barracks, we could not sell them. These plans the pictures don't do them justice of what they really look like. And I don't know if you've been through some of the communities. Heber's a prime example. They have several communities with craftsman style homes that are just really beautiful. And we would like to kind of get that kind of feel here. And I think it'd be very well accepted. All of these plans have living area on the main floor. We realize that a lot of our market is going to be families, and there's going to be a lot of couples too, and they don't like stairs. So every single plan that we do will have living area on the main floor. Some will have bedrooms upstairs, but a lot of them have bedrooms on the main floor also. The comment that he made about 40%, I don't know how he misunderstood me. I addressed the planning commission. I indicated that probably only 40% of the homes in the project would be sold under nightly rentals. The rest, the 60%, would be families, other people who didn't want to rent their homes out.
Well, to be fair, we kind of pushed him off to the second public hearing on that.
Yeah,
as well, so
yeah.
we shouldn't talk
Okay.
about it at this point.
Okay, I understand. I just wanted to comment that the 30 by 40 pictures that you were looking at there, the design, that's a building pad. That's not a lot size. That's just the building pad of the home. So there's 10 feet between each home, and the lots are much bigger than that. I also wanted to make sure everybody understood there's sidewalks and trails through the whole community. Nobody should have to walk on the street. And we've tried to, in addition to sidewalks, have a good trail system that goes clear down to 30s so they can actually go down to the park if they want to. So there are adequate trails through there. As Brandy indicated, we've been working on this now for over a year, and we've met with the communities, not only Bella Vista, but Horizon and the mobile home park, and we've addressed their issues. We've been before you in work sessions several times, and we appreciate the comments that you've made, and we've tried to incorporate them. A good example is as you look along up by the ridge where we had triplex lots.
Well, I do appreciate those have gone back to single
Yeah,
family, certainly.
they've gone from triplexes. You recommended duplexes, and we've looked at it, and we really feel that we can sell them better and they will look better if we do single family detached. So we've changed those. So along the way, as we've met with you and the Planning Commission and others, we've tried to adopt your recommendations. And I think that we have a much better project because of your input. So I just want you to know that we appreciate that. Do you have any questions for me?
Steve, just a couple that were
Okay.
asked that I would make sure got answered. Number one, the one question he asked for you to is what is the benefit to Washington City out of your project? If you wouldn't mind sharing kind of what your feelings and the benefit that you're bringing to our community here.
Well, we feel like we'll have a community that will allow starter home buyers who can't afford big homes to be able to buy a home rather than rent. We feel that's a big asset. And we feel that these homes will be attractive enough that they'll appreciate in value and help them to create an asset base so that they can move on. So really, we're looking a large part at the starter market. We also feel like for those who want to do nightly rentals, they can help pay. A lot of people from Salt Lake like to have a home where they can come, but they can't quite afford it. But if they can rent it out a couple nights a month, it helps pay their mortgage. So we feel that that's a big benefit to them. Also, it's a benefit to us. We feel it's just another sales approach that we can use that helps to move the inventory. So does that answer your question, Jeff? We've got a lot of amenities in there too, which I think is a big asset to the community. Not only the pools and the courts, but also the trail system. I think the community will be a great asset to the community.
Any other questions or comments for Steve?
I got one. You mentioned at the Planning Commission, there was some conversation with a couple of our Planning Commission members. Do you want to address that?
Well, one of the members felt that it was just too high density. They just felt like they denied it based on density. And I pointed out that we were well within our rights on density, according to the master plan, et cetera. He was the only one who objected to the master plan. There were several that objected to the nightly rentals, and I'm not exactly sure what their objection was. I think they felt like there'd be too much partying, or it'd be more of a commotion. We feel strongly that that's not the case. We feel like there's better security, there's better maintenance of them. The yards are certainly kept up a lot better so that we can rent them. We think that the part that are nightly rentals really set an example for the others who are in the community who live there. And I hope that the others will follow the example that we set through our maintenance, that it will help keep the whole community looking nicer.
Not the conversation I was asking about, though.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what the two that were opposed to the nightly rentals, what their logic was.
I got two Planning Commission members
Okay.
that are pretty frosted. They felt like they were
The two that voted no?
the one and the one next to them, both of them have said that they felt threatened by a conversation that you had with them.
I'm sorry about that. I certainly don't mean to threaten anybody.
We can talk about it later.
I want to acknowledge that there has been movement. Hope that the community there will give you a copy of the letter that they sent us so that you can look at that and respond to it. It's a difficult project.
It is.
You know, it's going to affect the immediate communities and the larger community and a very, very increasingly busy telegraph. It's an important project for us.
Sure.
And I think that's why there's so much exchange going on. I think that you have been patient with our input, but we're not completely certain, some of us, one of us, whoever, completely certain that you've listened to our concerns about density and height. And I think there are other areas where you've listened very well, where you've put some single homes and upgraded your amenities and moved some things around, and I want to acknowledge that you've done that. I hope that we can continue this dialogue, continue talking, and get to some resolution for you in a reasonable amount of time.
Okay, we appreciate that. 14 months isn't a long time for these type of projects. Often, I know at the point of the mountain where we did Traverse Mountain, we've been working on that for 20 years. And some of these things just take time to work out, and we understand that. And we're working with you the best we can under the circumstances that we have to deal with.
I think if you continue to listen and we continue to maintain civility and interest, and I think we can come up with something that works. That's my hope.
Okay.
And I'm sure it's the hope of the people sitting here today and the entire council. And we appreciate your interest in our community. You've had an impact on our community, but this one's a tough one for us, and I hope you understand that.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I think we've had enough dialogue on this. I'll entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion and a second.
Granger, aye.
Pellison, aye.
Nice night.
All right, move on to the second public hearing, which talks about the residential short-term overlay zone. If there's nothing really additional, I'd like this one to kind of breeze through. That's just my personal preference. So, public hearing for consideration to approve a zone change request Z-17-27, creating a residential rental short-term overlay zone located approximately Bella Vista Drive. Again, same applicant.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll get, oh, there we go. Jumped in. I was going to wait for that, but that was quick. Caught me off guard. Thank you, Mayor. As stated, this is a request on a zone change to add the overlay residential rental short-term zoning to this particular area. That's highlighted in the blue shaded area. It's kind of a little hard to see, but just follow that hard blue line all the way around. The area requested is approximately 32.44 acres in size. The proposed change is for possible future development of a project that could or would allow for short-term rentals, or as the term in our neck of the woods now, we refer to them as vacation rentals. Staff's reviewed the proposed overlay zone, finding that it meets the minimum criteria in parcel size and number of units. But because of the area, this is staff's interpretation, and the surrounding, the staff feels that this is still too many units, and it's actually not 226, it's 221. I accidentally added those 5 on that far east corner in there into it, but it's actually 221 units within that shaded area. So with that, the property is designated in the general plan as a medium-high density on the north side of Bonnie and medium density on the south side of Bonnie. The general plan dwelling units per acre, again, is a 7 to 12 units on the north side and 4.5 to 6 on the bottom side. The entire area in the 32 acres would fall at an 8.8 dwelling units per acre on the average for the whole 32 acres. Again, we can break that down by the number of units on top and bottom, which I think I kind of did, and they fall within the medium-high range on the north side, and on the south side, they fall in the medium range on the dwelling units per acre on that as well. The Planning Commission reviewed the request on their September 20th, 2017 meeting. Planning Commission, by a vote of 3 to 2, recommended approval of Z-17-27 for the overlay zone request, adding the residential rental short-term overlay zone to this particular area. And this is passed on to you, the City Council, based on their findings that you see in the report. Now, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have as it relates to the vacation rental. Now, I do need to point out that that amenity area you see in that is the old one. They did upgrade that. That was one of my reserves when I went in, but you've seen the updated version of that. which I can go to unless you need me to. I think we know they added an extra pool and a few amenities over on that west side of that parking area. It's been changed. And I could go back to that if you wanted to see it specifically, but they have increased of course, the amenity area. But with that said, I'll be glad to answer any question that council might have on this request for the overlay short-term rental.
Now, the commission voted to deny it.
No, they voted by a vote of 3-2 in favor of. And there were 2 that voted against it and 3 that voted for it.
As we were talking earlier, we have, just so the rest of the council knows, we've got roughly 800 on the books approved that it.
Approved units and about a fourth of those that are built.
Almost
built.
150 that are built.
Yep.
And up and running.
Throughout the city, yeah.
Now, there's plenty of unapproved Airbnbs, but that's what we've got.
And that's what we've talked about, and that's why we, just to bring that to light, the reason we wrote our 2 ordinances, because we don't, there's lots of cities that just don't allow them. You got lots of people are doing what we call the black marketing, Airbnb, whatever you want to say, illegal, however you want to adjective that, it doesn't matter. They're not right and illegal. So as a city, we decided, Planning Commission, City Council, a couple of years ago, that we wanted to offer places that they could legally be done. And we came up with the 2 options, an entire development, or we'd let people come in for a CUP on an individual home. Now, we've had people that have taken applications, never returned because they can't get the signatures that are needed. And that's why we made it tough to get the CUP, because the neighbors, they had to have 75% of the neighbors in a 500-foot radius say they're okay with it. And everybody thinks, I'll be the first one to get it. You watch. I'm good with all my neighbors. And nobody's returned with an application.
You mentioned 2 options, the CUP, the individual, or an entire development. But what about a portion of a development?
Well, this is we consider it's all in one particular area. And now we have had people who've come back. I'll give you, we do have the villas, that's not the villas, they're called, yes, they are called the villas at Sienna Hills. That it's those ones by the church that had like, there were 72 platted units and 24 of them were built. The people that wanted to pick up the units that went into foreclosure, the other 54, applied for the whole development to do the vacation rental. And because of the existing members there didn't want it, it didn't get it. And so that's why, it's tough once you try to come in after a project started to get it. It's better to go, if you're going to piece it, to have it like this before everybody moves in and they kind of know coming in, these are and these are not. And
Okay,
that's
but
what
I'm saying the only choice in front of the council isn't necessarily to do the entire development. There's also the choice to do a portion of it at this point.
Yeah, and right now, even if if the council so passes this 32 acres right here, but you end up changing their PUD, it's still, this is their border for vacation rental. Does that make sense?
No.
I'm just saying that if this design changes, because you changed the design of their PUD, the 32 acres would be the area, because it's done by a meets and bounds.
Okay.
And so if you ended up dropping units, you're not approving 220, and you're approving the area to be done. They just have to have a minimum of 5 units and 5 acres, and they meet that because of our overlay zone. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that if you end up taking it, they're not going to be approved for, say that it's just that this area shows the area and what their PUD looks like underneath it.
Okay.
But, an overlay zone is, I could still take that off and go put it anywhere else, and it would still just be the 32.44 acres, if that makes sense. It's not about the number of units underneath it in this particular case, because that could end up changing. Maybe, possibly not. It's at a later meeting. So I'm just pointing that out.
Well, let me ask the question another way then. If this request is for 33 acres, can we approve 5 acres?
You could, yeah. You're the council. You can say, you know what, I think that's too much. But that's and then the developer has their choice. You can say, you know what, I only want to give you half of that. If you'll take half of it, I'll approve it. If you don't, then I'll just do denial, and you can come back. So you have those options. There's always options. Yeah, we never like to say people are pinned into a So you do have that to offer them, but you could do that, but I'd give them the option to either accept the 28, the 16, the 5, whatever, that comes when you make that decision. You can ask them if they'll take that or not. Now, if they don't, you just say, okay, I'm going to recommend denial, and then you vote on it, and someone seconds it. That's how the process would work.
So Drew, if we were to approve north of Bonnie Lane and east of Bella Vista for that amount of units, would it be geographically bound to that area?
Yes, we would come up and do a meets and bounds legal description of that area for the overlay zone, because that's how zoning's based on, and that's what it would be. And so you would do that. I mean, that again, that's an option to say yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me that you like?
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you.
Now I can retract a little bit of what my previous statement was. Phil, were you done with what you wanted to talk about with, because again, this is a public hearing. We invite those that want to come up, but we want it to be directed to the short-term rental, not the item we just previously discussed, because I think we've discussed that enough. So, Phil, did you want to, was it Phil? I'm sorry, sir.
Arthur Reed.
Art?
Arthur Reed.
Art, I'm sorry, Art. I apologize.
I don't.
Phil Art, sorry.
It could be worse. And given the fact that I've been accused of fake news, I don't know whether that's a compliment or not, but I guess it's better.
I've been accused
I
of
guess it's
saying
better than
things that
what
were
was
fake
mentioned to
news,
one on the planning committee. So, no, I would just like to say that with the amount of short-term rental in Washington, the overnight short-term rental, we really need to look at what's happening on Telegraph and the future of Telegraph, and make sure that it doesn't become like Sedona. You've been there, you've seen what downtown Sedona looks like. Just a bunch of junky little shops, what once used to be a really pretty place. And if we have neighborhoods with families that are growing roots, one thing I still haven't seen, there are homes that just have a garage in the front, an entrance in the back, and we haven't seen that. But it shows on their plan. And when we're looking at a short-term rental, what we're looking at then, this area, I look at this and it's like a hotel. Boy, we have a hotel that's going to be built up by the freeway on the boulevard coming in. So let's not have more hotels spread out all over in the middle of our residential area. Let's build a community. Thank you.
Any questions for Art? Thank you very much.
My name's Penny Scher, and I live in Horizons West. I'm just wondering, I haven't been to all the meetings. Have we seen any list of covenants and CC&Rs for these rental, or anything in the CC&Rs for the rental? Talking about if you rented your property after you bought it, background checks, is there any stipulation as how many people can rent, how many people can live in there?
Yeah, the CC&Rs don't come before this council.
Oh,
for
okay.
approval.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
But anyway,
There's a process, and then that we're not at that process yet.
Actually, CC&Rs would never come. That's a legal document between the residents within the council. We don't get involved in CC&Rs. That's between you as residents.
so I guess my question would be to the developer, is there anything limiting how many people can be in a unit that they rent to?
There will be CC&Rs, not only for the nightly rental, but for the whole project.
Okay.
I can tell you from past experience from this council, one of the stipulations that have been on all the previous overnight rentals is they are handled by a rental agency, one that oversees the whole project, and they are on site. Now, that's been the stipulation. Now, not to say that this would stay, but it's been pretty firm with this council.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you.
Right.
Right.
Again, my name is Ron Romney. I'm a resident of the Bella Vista neighborhood. I'll try to be succinct in my comments and address them to the short-term rental. I want to read something here, and I don't do that in any form of disrespect, but I'm just trying to show what we've looking at and what we're trying to understand. This is from the city ordinance regarding short-term residential overlays. And it's part of what's supposed to be included in the application for such a short-term rental. And it says, and I want to read it because it says it much better than I could. It says, the applicant shall prepare a written text that clearly and thoroughly explains the proposed use of the land, including those areas devoted to short-term residential rental housing uses and activities. Well, we've seen a map, but there's not any narrative, and it doesn't explain that. And then it goes on further, and it says, the Planning Commission and City Council shall not authorize a residential rental short-term overlay zone approval unless evidence, not talk, not comments, but evidence is presented showing, one, the proposed use of this particular location is necessary or desirable to provide a service or facility which will contribute to the general well-being of the neighborhood and community, and that such use will not, under the circumstances of the particular case, be detrimental to the health, safety, general welfare of persons residing or working in the facility, or injurious to the property or environment in vicinity. I just ask, where is that? We've asked for what has been presented to the staff and to the Planning Commission and everything. We haven't ever seen a narrative like that. Okay, and about whether it's necessary, this afternoon I looked on the zoning map published on the city website, and it shows between Washington Parkway and State Route 9 there are already 5 properties approved for short-term rentals. I don't know how many units that equates to. You told us 8,000 for the city.
More than 5.
Well, all I saw on the map was 5.
Yeah, but is there?
There's 2 up along Washington Parkway. There's the casitas at Sienna Hills. There's several. So, and all of those, okay, that show on the map have much better access to the freeway and to other things because Washington Parkway, there are ones right close to State Route 9, those kind of things. So allowing it here in this particular property only adds to the problems that already exist there. Okay, when we've talked about those, we don't need to rehash those. But I don't see how it diminishes it anyway, but it only adds to it, and it brings more congestion, traffic, whatever, closer into the areas of the city that are already, okay, have those kind of problems. So I think that's something that should play into any approval of the short-term rentals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romney. Any questions for him?
I'm good. Thank you.
Anybody else? Did you want to hear from the developer?
Sure. That'd be great.
Probably specifically, I'd like to hear, you mentioned your CCNRs. I'd kind of like to hear what your thoughts are with the CCNRs.
Well, certainly we agree with you, Jeff, that you need to have one manager on site managing all of the units. The units will have to be maintained and the yards maintained. They will be fairly typical CCNRs for a project like this. We haven't put them together yet, but that's kind of where we're thinking. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I'm just, you said there would be CCNR,
Yeah.
just kind of wondering what your thought process is what they might contain.
We
Especially
feel like
dealing
we
with
have to have
rental.
CCNRs just to maintain a clean environment and a safe environment. We want to address the parking in CCNRs. All CCNRs do that. What you can and can't park there. Pretty much a lot of it will be boilerplate, but we'll address the specifics for our project.
So part of my struggle with the project as a whole is you're surrounded by age-restricted communities, and Bella Vista isn't technically age-restricted, but effectively age-restricted.
Our project won't be age restricted.
I know.
Yeah. Do you feel that's a disadvantage or?
I think that other areas where we've done the overnight rental, they haven't been in the middle of age-restricted areas, or they've been in areas that are already listed as apartment R3 zoned, that type of a project. So that's where the areas that we have let out overnight rental don't have the same dynamics that this property has.
Yeah, it's got some unique issues with, of course, you're next to a mobile home park, you've got commercial out front.
I understand that.
Yeah,
I think there's ways
yeah.
to address them.
Yeah.
But still, it's in overnight. I'm just asking the question how you plan to, I mean, that's a big component of the community, and that's why all these people are here, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
you're introducing a product that isn't an age-restricted, that's not what it attracts. That's not what you're going for. That's not what you're marketing.
No. It isn't, you know, we really want to attract the first-time home buyer, those who can't afford to own anywhere else, those who want to get out of apartments, start building equity. We feel like this is a perfect project for it. We feel like some of our products will be the most economical to buy in the whole county. So that's true. Your comments are true. I feel like a lot of that's a plus, you know, because Washington really needs that type of housing.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah. Any other questions that I can help?
Anybody else? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, I'm going to entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
Move closing of this hearing.
Thank you. Motion and a second.
Ivy, aye.
Granger, aye.
Balance and I.
Nice night.
Correct, aye.
Thank you, and thank you all for your comments and your concerns and your questions. We will move on to a public hearing for consideration to approve a zone change request Z-17-30 to change zoning designation from R16, single-family residential 6,000 square foot minimum lots to R2, 1 and 2 family residence, located approximately 300 north, 300 east. Applicant TV
We
Properties.
might want to wait just a second, just
All right.
to give folks a chance to.
Mayor,
We might just want to wait just a second.
while they're clearing out, I'll make an announcement. I'm the grandfather again.
Is this happening?
Just barely.
Little boy or girl?
Little boy. Third one's here. Thank you.
Were you aware that, were you aware?
Just by the phone.
The last month, you just now found out?
I didn't even realize it.
Well, that's-
Everything
you really need to talk to your
Good.
kids more.
Yeah, it's all good. It's good to have him here.
Is he here or where's he at?
Sets of breeding for the finally here.
They're finally here.
Councilman, is he here in St. George or is he?
St. George, yeah. Yeah.
Councilman, you realize it's on TV in some place.
Enterprise.
Is that where they are?
This will be streaming live, Council. You might want to mention that your daughter or your son having them put their name on public air.
We're streaming.
Yeah.
That's always streamed.
Yeah.
So what was your child's name?
All right, here we go. You got it, Drew?
Yeah, I need to find an exhibit because you saw this and I want you to see this.
came with me.
I don't have it, Randy. Mayor, can I ask for like a 2 or 3 minute little timeout? I hate to do this, but
Yeah,
one
we can have
exhibit I
Rex
wanna-
Wilkie come on up and tell some jokes. And
I just need to go find an exhibit that's different that made why
Okay.
they brought this back. I thought it was
if you
in here and
folks
it's
don't
not.
mind,
I'll
we'll
be
take a
right back.
2-minute break. We apologize. We know you're
Jeez.
waiting with bated breath for answers and comments.
Yeah, just go and come back. There you go. Where's our candy tonight? A night of all nights we need candy. It isn't here.
Of all the
Because you
nights
had-
we meet candy, is that what you say?
That's because you had pulled pork tonight. Where's the pulled pork sandwiches at?
Where are they at?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
He knows where it is. Oh, I'm coming here for Halloween. I'm coming here for Halloween.
Oh, 2 years ago, we had such bad candy about 2 years ago. And Roger, our city manager complained so often, I just bought like about 3 pounds.
That's
How you doing, Rex?
Look at that. I found the little. Oh, those are nerds. I don't want to be a nerd. You are what you eat.
Yeah.
I thought it was a lemon head. It's like, oh man, it's been so long since I had one of those. Oh, there's a Reese's. I'll take one of those too.
Oh, there's good.
And then these
All
M&Ms are
good. How
kind of
about
a good
yours?
thing. Especially if we're gonna have to listen to Rex Wilkie. Better have a few.
Where's he at?
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of doctor?
Stand and stretch. Reach for the scars.
Dad, back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
My wife says, is she? Okay. I think I knew she was there.
Is this like early trick or treat?
Yeah. Pass that on down.
Rex have a treat.
We've been sitting through that whole thing. I didn't watch it.
He has.
Busy trying to look intelligent. Well, get used to the issues of districts and no resolution. No. Yeah, we get that. We get paid a lot.
They get paid a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. You keeping your golf game on, are you? Really?
I'm busy. My brother just doesn't play anymore. Everybody else needs another water.
I would say that you can stay that.
Looks like everybody's okay.
I played, but I couldn't. 5 years ago, so I kind of think about twice a week, but
You got it. I got it. In terms of, they give me the.
Well, I just got my family.
What's your name?
Everything.
Frederick.
Quite
it's
You walk in the ride.
Over the summer.
Always good.
Mayor, grab some candy.
I'm water. Somebody needs to catch. I just think you had most of this. What this?
Baby beef.
No, I'm good here.
It's R16.
Candy. Pass it around the auction.
I love it. You're like.
My wife just got related. So much gonna have
I like doing this.
I just we didn't get you. What do you think of this statement?
So what were you gonna say? Start it out.
Oh, I thought it was where I'm back.
Oh,
6 years.
so good.
Well,
Okay.
Will I get everybody to
Thursday,
yeah.
Okay. All right.
I would drop the cannon.
That's right. Hey.
Yeah, no. Okay, thank you very much for allowing us to take a break. We'll move on to that public hearing, item C. Do I need to restate it, Drew, or are you okay?
I think I'm good.
All right.
I guess Councilman Belson will be in a second, so.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor, and appreciate that time to get this exhibit. This is the reason this is back on. As you recall, this particular property a couple months ago went for this same zone change. I think it got shot down 3-2 or 4-1. It was close, but the applicant really felt that this might be a help, so they wanted to reapply, so that we're here before you tonight. The application, again, is for a zone change of approximately 0.935 acres. And we all know this is at the corner of 300 East, 300 North, on that northwest corner. It's from R16, 6,000 square foot single-family residential, to a proposed 1- and 2-family residential, referred to as the R2 zoning designation. The R2 zoning district allows for either 1 2-family dwelling unit or 2 single-family dwelling units on a single lot. The applicant is seeking zoning approval in hopes of subdividing the parcel into 3 lots to build 3 twin homes on those said lots in the near future. The general plan land use map designation for this particular area is the medium density residential, which allows for density ratios of 4.5 to 6 dwelling units per acre. The surrounding zoning districts are R16 to the north, west, east, and south. I also will point out that in the medium density area, the zoning districts that are allowed in there are the R16, the R18, and this particular R2 zoning district. Staff's reviewed the proposal. It does fall within the general plan land use map for the area. Planning Commission reviewed the request at their September 20th, 2017 meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of Z-17-30 for the zone change request from single family 6,000 square foot R16 zoning to the proposed 1- and 2-family residential R2 zoning designation onto you, the City Council, and that's based on the findings. Now, I will add to this I've tried to remember even how far back I've had many people, this lot's been up for sale for a long, long time. I have had people come in to staff developer, and I mean, I lost count, and I'm not being facetious or sarcastic. It's been a lot of times. I've probably entertained 15 to 20 at least different people coming in for different ideas. Most of them wanted to come to you with a PUD, which I know you'd love to hear, but it had anywhere from 8 to 10. Even one of them had 12 units on this particular lot, 3 fourplexes. I would tell them how bad their chances were. I said, I don't want to take your money, but if you want to spend it, I have to let you make application. And nobody really ever did tell. This is actually the best project I've seen proposed for this corner. I'm just telling you the history on it. This is what they wanted to show you from the last time, is that if it stays like it is, you can see on the left-hand side, this is what could happen on this particular area. You'd end up with 5 units because it has the room for it. You'd have 5 driveways, 5 homes that are going to max out. Again, as we talked about, most people in an R16, They'll come in and they'll do the minimum on the front, side, rear. They go to every inch they can on that buildable area, stuff the home on a small lot. And this is what more than likely would end up on the property right now.
Through the project, a block south is R16. Is it the same size property? And they've got 6 lots on it?
It's a little bit
In the
bigger.
cul-de-sac?
It's a little bit, it's a hammerhead. They didn't even have room to do the cul-de-sac. It's a hammerhead.
The only reason I ask is this property times, or divided by 6,000 is 6.78. Effectively, it's 5.
In essence, when you look at it. Now, as you see the example on the right, this is the 2 twin homes. You can see there's more green on it, not as much orange. This is kind of what the proposal, would kind of be for this particular. And what I love to see is you have some extra parking on the site and you have 1 driveway.
What is the area in the northwest corner? I can't see the right. Is that
Oh,
just
that-
open space or? That'll help.
They'll just allow that to be for everybody to use. That's a good question. I think we could be more than willing to ask
Drew,
that.
have you ever had an applicant that came in and said, we want to build exactly what the neighborhood is there? I didn't think so. Okay, that answers that question.
Well, I mean, it would be built. That's,
Amen.
it would be built already. I think that's one of the things is that it would be done, especially with, the way our city's growing and homes being, I think that someone would have come in and done that if it would have been a feasible project for there. So.
Are there any requirements for a fence on 300 East? Or
On 300 East?
There would be if that's a backyard, isn't it?
backyard,
There's really
but
not
it's
a
a
requirement on there. We don't require that. So
would there be a sidewalk?
there will be, they have to improve, the street. There will be sidewalk down there. Isn't there?
There's already sidewalk.
I think there's already sidewalk on
Not
there.
300 north, though.
Yeah, 300 North would be improved
There's
as
one on
well.
300 East, but not 300 North.
Oh, I think
Well, I can appreciate in prior designs, though, they didn't have access to 300 north, and so.
Yeah, when we were able to get rid of that strip we thought had been, but we found out that because of some lucky things for us, we were able to get that strip to the rightful place and it became part of the property and recorded that way. So, because that was something that was holding up a lot of folks of being, looking at this project as well.
Well, for me, teaching right across the street and seeing that we have a crosswalk right on that corner, I like this project much better than the previous proposal that had 2 driveways backing out onto 300 East.
Yeah.
I appreciate the developer working on that to that end.
I know that this council's about building a sense of community. And I'd love to see what they're going to do with that common space to do that with that little small community if this is approved.
Well, there will be.
But what I don't want to see is a weed patch back there.
Right. And you will, if this does pass. I'm just saying that it would come back before you in the form of a preliminary, well, it actually will be a minor subdivision. I mean, they could do the preliminary plat, final plat, but I always tell people on 3 lots, go through the minor, but you will have a shot at seeing the layout of the lots.
Okay.
And that's something you could definitely want to, maybe
want to see it.
request.
I like seeing more
strongly.
green, but sometimes green is just sagebrush and it's
Right.
not.
But she wouldn't have to provide, if it's R2, she wouldn't have to provide a design for common area, it'd just be.
No, but as part of your thing, you could probably ask to see or get something, if you feel that's the council's prerogative at that point. So, especially since it is 2 family, Any other questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Again, this is a public hearing. If you're out there that have an interest or a concern or a comment, we would love to entertain that. The council would. Again, a reminder, they will not be making a decision on this one tonight, but at a later, 2 weeks. Going once, going twice.
Seeing no one, Mayor, I'll make the motion that we close the public hearing on this. I do want to make a couple comments as we do close that from my own point of view. To echo what Councilwoman Granger mentioned, one of the things that we've tried as a council to do, especially to build community. And to me, duplexes and fourplexes and whatnot become rental units that really people don't buy into our community. We talked about having entry-level homes for families, first homes. To me, this type of thing lends to that. They come in, they buy their first home, it's across from the school, they build into our community, they become community members. So I'm much more inclined to still look at single-family homes versus an apartment complex. With that, I'll close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second.
IBI.
You know, just to continue that dialogue, may I?
Absolutely.
Okay. Sometimes we personalize it and then that's our experience, but my son went through medical school in a side-by-side like that. It was a wonderful place. It was a wonderful home. And it was just what they could afford because it was a little bit smaller than the single-family home. It was also what they could maintain because they didn't have a lot of time to manage a huge yard or whatever. But the proximity of that, prime real estate. Oh my gosh, they're right next to the library, right next to the community center, right next to the school. I would think that that's not going to be transient. I want to be right there and really in the heart of what happens in our
I can
community.
tell you the facts are those there's up the street another 2 blocks, you've got a 16-plex, very transient. You got down the street 2 blocks, you got another, I don't know what is on the corner down there, it's more than 16. It's all transient.
And I appreciate that you live there and have a sense of
it.
it.
Is, and I guess I always, as I shared last time, I'd much rather see 2 nice homes go in. That's what the neighborhood is. That's what the block is. And we come in and we drop more houses in 1 acre than is on the rest of the block.
But that's the zoning they got.
Well, they're an R16. I say, you know what? Let's see. You can do what you can do with an R16. Part of the reason with an R16, it was already developed. This lot had a house on it. Yeah. I mean, that's why it's like, hey, give it R16. This lot's built out. Well, now we're left because it got a blanket zone, and now we're saying, I just see this opening. This is the beginning of buying old houses, tearing them down, and let's build 6 more in here. That's this. You let it start.
Austin, aye.
Nice night.
Granger, aye.
You right.
I had to close that public
That's
hearing.
right. Thank you. And both, thank you for your suggestions and your comments. Very well noted. Move on to item D, public hearing for consideration to approve a zone change Z-17-31. Excuse me. To change the zoning designation from RA1 residential agriculture, a 1 acre lot, to C2 service commercial, located approximately at the corner of Merrill Road and 3000 East in St. George. I said Washington. We'll just say Merrill Road and 3000 East. Applicant, Washington County School District.
It's 3,000 whatever in St. George
Yeah,
Street, and then it's off of Merrill, and and at the end of 2000 South Sandia Drive. There's my head's already starting to spin.
Drew, I've got something. We've got a conflict here in our paperwork. We've got C1 and C2.
I thought I cleaned that up.
This is a C1 zoning, correct?
Yes, I thought.
And was it noticed as C1
it was
also?
C1. It was noticed as C1.
And it is C1.
Let everybody know that in the planning commission. It's C1.
Do I need to amend that then?
Well, Mike, is that what was on the, because I
It
think
says C2.
it got taken right from my planning commission. Should have been, thought we had that fixed, but we didn't.
Okay, I'll correct that. to
It is
say
C1.
C1.
Yeah. And everybody in the planning commission, the public hearing, we spent, I think, 3 to 5 minutes on that. So it is C1.
All right.
So
That's not a problem. That would be considered to be
it was,
more of a intent view, so
it's community.
anybody was gonna be concerned about what would be coming for that one.
Okay. The applicant is requesting a zone change of approximately 2.42 acres. The requested change is from the current zoning of residential agricultural 1 acre minimum, the RA1 zoning designation, to a proposed community commercial C1 zoning designation. The C1 zoning district is being sought for to allow for future commercial development at this location. The general plan use designation for this area is the civic designation, which allows for, as the general plan states, any zoning district within the city. So that means any one of them can be applied for in that designation. The surrounding zoning districts are PUD to the north, RA1 to the east, elementary, which is the elementary school, and it is then St. George City to the west and the south. Just to point out, on this intersection, this is the only quarter of that main intersection right there that's in Washington City. So all the rest of it is St. George on all the other three corners. Staff's reviewed the proposal. It does fall within the general plan. Land debt designation. The Planning Commission reviewed the request at their September 20th meeting. The Planning Commission, by a vote of 4-1, recommended denial of Z-17-31 for the zone change request from RA1 to the community commercial C1, and based on their motion by Commissioner Martinson stating that the request is, quote, not compatible to surroundings to the north and east. And this is on to you, the City Council. Staff's recommendation was for approval, and I had the findings as below. So
I understood their concern that it was more of a question of C1 or PD commercial rather than not.
And that was our
The
discussion.
neighboring.
That's what our discussion was, and we talked about this, I think, last time with, with the Dean Terry parcel that is coming up on your vote here in a little bit. Was the point is that the applicant asked for this zoning. I know that everybody wants to do that, but and I guess my I'm not going to say it was a rebuttal. My reasoning to the Planning Commission is this exactly what I'll say again tonight. It's that if that's the direction we want to go, I'd hope that we don't continue to just deny people from straight zoning, whether it be residential or commercial, because we always, if we're going to do that, I would recommend that we just become a city of zoning, just have PUDs only that people can choose from, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to be harsh or mean or anything. I'm just, I mean, if that's our
understand what you're
decision.
saying, and I understand they have an opportunity to apply for whatever. So that was
Yeah.
my understanding from the Planning Commission.
It was.
And with respect to your discussion of whether or not we ought to be able to kind of push it one way or the other, I think there are projects like this one that we should be able to say, I understand you submitted for C1, but that doesn't make the most sense, or vice versa.
Right, and I will have to give, also another rationale behind this is that these folks weren't aware of our new proposed, PUDs that are coming in line. They made their application several months ago, like it does to get through the process,
It's
going
interesting to me
through.
that it's PD commercial on the St. George side.
Shouldn't have shown you that exhibit. No, I'm just,
Maybe shouldn't have, but now the cat's out of the bag.
actually,
right?
yeah, this wasn't my exhibit, but
And the A20 there is still county, right?
no,
No, that's St. George
it's
City.
St. George City
That's
now.
St. George City?
Yeah.
Dang, there's some county.
That's the piece. Don't get us going on that piece.
All right.
Some of the older,
Yeah, I
Councilman
forgot. There's history on
Turek
that.
and Council Starkey and I remember the days. We don't like to talk about that piece. That's got a bad taste in our mouth about that.
But I'll
piece.
bet you, I'll give you 2-to-1 odds, that A20 is gonna turn into PD commercial too.
Oh, we already are aware that it probably is going there. Now, I will tell you, there will be a church being built south of the elementary school. That's where the new stake center, for some of you folks in the fields that just got your new stake, that's where it's going. No, that's right across the street from the school.
The green.
That area right there, it's actually grown a little bit. That's where the
They're already
new,
building a church.
there's another stake center south of that and a block over on 3650. That's the new stake center for Little Valley. And which I thought was going to be for this stake, but this one, because they got split a while ago, and this is where their new stake center is going to be happening
Trying to
soon.
work on a mobile concept for those churches. They can just drive them through the neighborhoods.
It's called portables.
Portables. That's what it is.
Portable. Good solution for blue clay area.
But like I say, as I reviewed this, I think the corner needs to be commercial. As your staff member and representative, I really feel this needs to be a commercial piece. Now, how it ends up, that's, I guess, yet to be determined. But I think it would be extremely difficult to try to say this, if it's not commercial, then what? It's going to be residential. And it would hurt my heart and my professional side of me strongly to see that have to the other option would be going residential, and that just would not set well in my, not integrity, my professional, just, what the word I want to say, my feelings toward that would be very, that would be a terrible residential piece, but.
Well, for us, there are homes along the back there. We're all aware. So I think.
And we have a canal. There is a canal.
I know there's a canal, and there's significant fencing in back of those homes too. I've driven out and seen it. But there's some things that can't even be done there because they're so close to a school. There are laws about what can be sold. But to have a professional office building like they're talking about, but we don't know that that's what will happen in the zoning if we give them straight zoning as opposed to a PUD. And I have, some sympathy with that. So.
I'd recommend we go vacation rental, but the lot's not big enough.
Yeah, it's a short-term overlay.
Sorry, I could not refrain.
22
I
units
apologize.
per acre too, right?
I apologize. Has to be 5 acres.
2-story.
And 2-story.
I think we should put a water park there.
Okay. Any questions for me before?
All right, this is a public hearing. We'd like to invite any or all of you to visit with us. Thank you.
My name is Victoria Hales. I live in the city of Washington, and I love school districts, and I love Washington County School District and all the schools that they're building in our community. However, I do not feel that C1, it was noticed as C2, by the way. I pulled it off your internet this morning. So I have a problem with, I looked up all the uses under C2, so I'm a bit unprepared for C1, but I'm sure your planner can tell me what those uses might be. However,
C1's a little bit more restrictive.
Well, let me propose a different suggestion. If they're really going to build a professional office there, then zone it AP, administrative professional, and limit them so that they can't do a retail or a commercial use on that corner, abutting all of the residences, abutting the elementary school, and abutting the churches that surround the area. I agree that the Washington County School District should be allowed to develop their property and should be allowed to use it appropriately. But if you zone that in a commercial setting, it would be inappropriate for all the surrounding uses, particularly the churches and the abutting residential and the school. So I think that AP, administrative professional, would get them a dental office like they've suggested, or a doctor's office. I also was surprised about a couple of things. Zoning is in your broad discretion. It's a legislative act. So I feel that it's appropriate for you to look at other zoning other than what's been requested. I agree that it's a small parcel and it has a lot of development challenges, but it would be in the best interest of the city of Washington. That's an entrance to our city. It's primarily residential in our city at that corner. And it also is general plan civic. If you read the general plan, it says that the appropriate uses would be schools, churches, as well as public facilities and public parks. So I think it would be in keeping with the general plan to keep it more civic oriented and less commercial oriented on that corner. So first, the general plan doesn't support this proposed change. I think that you have cover under your general plan to zone it however you believe in your legislative discretion is appropriate. However, I don't believe that zoning it different than it is zoned now or changing it to a strict commercial zone would be appropriate. If a preliminary plat comes through, I believe that it has to match the general plan, and the general plan says it should be civic, and those uses are not listed as commercial uses in your general plan. So it's my request that you deny the current application, and if there's a suggestion, you zone it in a way that would be more appropriate, abutting all the residences, which would be administrative professional.
Thank you. Any questions?
My name is Mark Havron. We live on Caserio Circle in the cul-de-sac there. She actually covered a good portion of the things that I was going to cover too. We feel the same way that if this is going to be used, we'd like it used in a manner that would be more appropriate, as she stated, for our homes and for the church and the buildings that are going to be surrounding that area. We don't feel like it needs to be commercial. There's going to be plenty of commercial all the way around the rest of the area on the St. George side and all. We're also concerned about school children. Right now, I live in the second plot over from 3,000. So we sit and we watch a lot. We see the kids go home from school and go back and forth to school and things.
You're at 735?
Yes, that's the one. And you watch these little kids, they go across there and they usually cut through the fields a lot, but there's days when it's muddy or whatever, they have to walk down the sidewalks and all. What we're concerned about, one part is if you put a big commercial thing in there, and I don't know what kind, you know, like if you talked about the dentists and things, it wouldn't be quite as bad. But if it's opened up to more of a, I don't know, a taco time or a gas station or who knows what, you've got a lot of children that cross that every single day, a couple of times a day, back and forth, back and forth. The traffic down Merrill Road, ever since Mall Road was opened, is just, it's quadrupled. I mean, it's just so much more traffic. Right now it gets bottled up. And if you've got people trying to pull in and out of a business there, I think it would really make things a lot worse. Plus the safety part for the children. I can't remember the other one I was going to say. Oh, the other thing, across from the school, as the gentleman said, they're going to build that new chapel there, the Stake Center. That's going to be a lot more traffic and things in there too. This is going to end up, in my opinion, to be a big bottleneck. I can't believe how often right now we see people running the lights there. That if Washington City and St. George City set 2 cops, one on each side somewhere in there, they could write enough tickets to pay for a lot of stuff in that city. We watch speeders go through there all the time. It's a mess. I'm surprised there's not as many accidents as there could be. Anyway, basically, as our homes sit there, the last thing we want is businesses to be, I don't know how to say this. It's a really odd shape. It's small on this end. If they start building businesses there and put them in there, are they going to ask for conditional use where they can back right up against our fences? You know, we don't want buildings right smack up there high,
The
tall.
property line is on the other side of the canal.
On this side of the canal?
It's on the south side of the canal, away
There.
from your house.
You're right.
And they would have setbacks from that too.
So they couldn't build clear back against us then?
Not without coming to the council and getting different approvals.
Who owns the property around the canal?
The city owns the
It's a
canal.
canal.
Canal
Canal company, okay.
Ron Thomas.
We were concerned about that and the height of the buildings and their lighting and such as that, as to, how it would affect our homes and things, people looking down in, lights on at night and things like that. Anyway, just to sum it all up, we don't think it'd be very good to approve it the way it is. We'd like to ask you all to think about it, make the best decision that you can. Thank you.
We recognize, sir,
Thank you,
that
sir.
Merrill Road is inadequate right now. That'll be one of our next major road projects, our east-west connection. So we recognize that, and it can't come soon enough.
Yeah.
Regardless of what happens with
There's a
this
lot of
piece.
traffic on that road now.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Name is Lane Johnson, also a resident in the area down there. I didn't recognize it was not. I thought it was C2 also, but I really don't understand the difference between C2 and C1. But that being said, what Mrs. Hales talked about, or Victoria Hales talked about, I completely agree with. Washington City has a unique opportunity with this piece of property, potentially recognizing that the school district does own it. But you're talking the literal corner of Washington City is on this lot, meaning on the southwest corner. So you're people coming into the area on 3000 East, you're coming into Washington City, which would be a perfect opportunity to address the fact that you're entering Washington City from St. George City, for one thing, and to turn that into a commercial corner makes no sense at all, especially with the school children coming into that corner and going up into the Pineview Estates area. Why you would want, or why they would want to utilize this as a commercial corner doesn't make any sense. With the increased traffic flow, the ability to enter into that piece of property can't happen on two sides. It's going to have to be restricted more to the east side of Merrill Road regardless. And it just doesn't make any sense that Washington City would not probably look at it from that perspective, that they would want to utilize it as an entrance into the city, not as a commercial property on a corner that now is adjacent to soccer fields in a school with children coming around the corner. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. It's an opportunity for the city to be very unique in that particular corner right there. I can actually see from my residence, I can see the Welcome to Washington City right in the corner right there now as it stands. And like has been discussed, you have St. George City on three other sides of that same corner. We all know there's going to be plenty of commercial there regardless at this point. Why would we need to turn that corner into commercial also? It doesn't make any sense, but that's the piece of property that would be very unique to the city of Washington to be utilized correctly if it could be looked at it from that perspective. So thank you.
What would your thoughts be of use when you mentioned that? Give us
Well,
some ideas of what you're thinking.
And I don't necessarily understand the laws or restrictions. I understand that the Washington County School District is proposing, I guess, that they would sell that 2.5 acres approximately. But I mean, as you drive down, for example, east of the mall, you see the St. George, Welcome to St. George coming down that side. You see signage, you see foliage, you see greenery in entrance into the city. Washington City has a very specific opportunity right there to make this available not only for the city, but for that school and those children that are trying to come down around that corner. Why would we want to make it more restrictive on that corner in particular? It creates far more danger, where it could be utilized as more for sporting events or something that would beautify the city coming in from the southwest corner is really what I would see as potential. Thank you. Any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know it's late, you guys, but bear with me. My name is Laree Haveron. I also live at 735. And we spend a lot of time in our backyard. That's why we bought that home, which is neither here nor there. If we don't like it, we can move. But we chose Washington for a reason. That canal can be closed in, which they've done across the street, which opens it up for backing us up even farther. I have one issue
Ma'am,
with.
if they bury that or close that in, the right of way is still there.
Thank you. Thank you. I see children walking from the elementary school trying to go through that area to stay off of, as you know, there's a sidewalk that is extremely close to the road. And as an adult, if Mark and I walk along there, it makes me very nervous. If I had children, they wouldn't walk on that sidewalk. So my question is, if the school owns this, there are already parent days, flag days, all of the different things they're so good with. That piece of property is utilized for parking. There's a lot. They can't park along Merrill Road, and they all pull into that parking lot. What is wrong with that? Why can't we keep that as part of the school district, even though, yes, it does involve the money, I understand. But if we can do this civil, keep it a civil rating, wouldn't it be wonderful to have some kind of a walkway for those children just to walk through and be able to go down the sidewalks to get back and forth to school? We don't need another high spot drive-through. We don't need another gas station. And where are the children going to walk when they come home from school? Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
What would your feelings be about like an AP usage that they've mentioned, a dentist office, those types of things that aren't such high traffic?
Where are the children, how are the children going to get from the school through the dentist's office, the doctor's offices, wherever they're going to be walking through those parking lots to get to the crosswalks?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, right now they're coming down to the light and crossing at the crosswalk and down the sidewalk.
Or down our sidewalk going north.
Correct. Those are on the east side are utilizing the sidewalk to the east. The others come down the west side and cross across.
For all the homes to the north of us.
I know, one of the earlier folks that spoke a little bit talked about the AP usage in there. I guess I was just wondering what your feeling was.
Well, you know, when this was brought up, I've never been to anything like this, and I'll tell you the truth why. Because I figured they're going to do to us what they want to do to us. And when I came at the last meeting, I realized, my goodness, people do listen. They do listen to the concerns of the people back there in the school districts. So I came with the idea, you know, the worst of evil, put the doctor's offices or whatever in there. But then I heard at that same meeting, someone spoke up and says, why should we sacrifice the corner of Washington? Because all the corners of St. George have already bellied up to the bar and signed the commercial change. So why not them? And I go, why not leave it the way it is? We don't have to have all this commercial everywhere we have it.
I can certainly understand your feelings. I guess one of the things that we often do as councils is try and find property rights versus homeowners' rights next door. And how do we help us so both people gain a little something out? So that's, I guess, why I asked those questions.
I enjoyed the meeting on last month, and I've really enjoyed this one because it has made me see a different perspective, that people do listen. I don't know how much down the road, what it's going to do, but I appreciate it, and I thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate being here this late.
I'm Valerie Turek, and I don't live on the adjacent property. I live 5 houses up Sandia, and we do have a lot of traffic. But my big concern is the safety of the kids. You have a group of kids that are crossing over Sandia to go to school with the crossing guard, and then the kids from Pineview Estates also that are not. And with the school district owning that property, I just think safety needs to kind of be the forefront of that property, because Riverside's existing. That corner is a little bit different from the other three corners because there were homes there. And I'm a big believer in property rights, but I also think the neighbors that are living, I don't know my directions, would that be north? North of that, we also have to think about their property rights. What is the commercial going to be if it's commercial? Is it going to be something with a lot of lights? So that's my big concern, is the safety of the kids crossing over any commercial property. You know, people getting out, and Merrill Road will be busy, you know, the way you kind of inch out into the road so you can see if you're clear. Are they going to be watching for the kids coming to and from school? And if even one child got injured, that'd be too many. So that, I just want you to think about the kids, because we do know kids are in that neighborhood, as Riverside is adjacent to the right-hand side of that. Thank you.
Anybody else? How about one of you three
I was
gentlemen?
gonna say, I'd like to hear an applicant come and address some of those thoughts or feelings of I think they looked and said, hey, we write the check. Yeah, he was sleeping through part of it.
Hey, I brought my computer so I can do some other things. Brent Gardner, representing the school district. I appreciate the opportunity of being before you. I understand a lot of the concerns that have been expressed. However, I look at this entire intersection here, and 2 and the 3rd intersection I'm sure will become commercial. And there are residences abutting that commercial. There's residents that always abut commercial. And as we move, if we try to keep all the commercial where it is right now, we create more traffic problems. I think having commercial areas near residential areas limits the amount of people that have to drive to a center commercial area. So I think having pockets of commercial area in Washington City, in the Washington Fields, right now you have very little commercial in that area. And all the residences are traveling on the road somewhere else to get to the commercial property. So.
Well, I know there's concern from the school district, the safety of the kids. Why not an AP or something like that? Because if it goes C1 and it gets sold, it's entitled, right?
That's correct.
So, I mean,
but we know it can't be a gas station or anything that has.
Why not?
Well, unless they don't want to serve alcoholic beverages. So that's one of the things.
Become a taco time. I mean, a fast food restaurant. Some of those things have been thrown out that it certainly could become.
You know, we've got a growing area out there. I wonder if the school district talked to the county about a small branch library. There's a lot of programs for kids and a lot of community things civically are right next to schools. I know how many times we've shared parking lots with churches. We use them during the week and the church uses them on the weekends. And it may not be enough property for a small library, but it would be interesting to see what the county said.
Has there been any discussion at all with the district about a commercial PUD? I know that came through the planning commission, those thoughts, or an AP situation. Has there been any discussion concerning that?
We met with the planning staff and discussed the different options, and at the point in time we were discussing it, it was a C1 commercial is what
they wanted
what was recommended at this location.
Like, certainly can appreciate their desires for that. I mean, if it was my piece and I wasn't going to develop it, I'm just going to sell it, I'd want my highest value zoning I could get on it. I can understand that. Appreciate that.
If you're a private group, I'd say just give it to us and take a tax cut.
Yeah, if we could get the funds out of it that we spent out there, I'm sure the school district would look at it, selling it to you at the C1 commercial rate.
I was gonna say, can we buy the
It's only
Civic rate? Come on up here, Rex. Yep.
He should have come up here in the first place.
And maybe Rex, while you're talking.
Originally, we had a preschool that was going to go there,
Correct.
but we were told no by this body.
No,
So-
you weren't told no.
Yeah.
No, you weren't.
Yeah. Well, we weren't allowed to build on that
No, you
property.
weren't. You were told it was right in and right out. And that's when you chose not to build on it.
I misunderstood.
Yeah. No, some of us old timers that cringed up here sat through that one. No, no, because that's what it came down to, was right in and right out.
'Cause that's what we wanted to do
Yeah,
that. So
exactly.
now
We
we're
came back
kinda
and
stuck
said,
with a
we'll
piece of
allow it right in,
property
right
and-
out. You said, no, we're going to move it here. So those are old stuff. Let's bury it and go.
No, I'm
Anyway.
just saying, I think that's what we'd like to have done, but now we're kind of stuck in a
Correct.
situation where we need money and we need resources, and
Well-
we're trying to build more schools, and they're very expensive, and to have that just be a blank piece of property is pretty
I
tough.
can appreciate
Yeah,
that. What
so-
would your opposition be to a PUD commercial? You get your commercial value out of it, but it allows the council and yourselves, or the developer, whoever it's going to be, to work together so we mitigate any concerns or adverse effects to the neighborhood. We address the effects of the safety of the kids. You still get their commercial use out of it.
And I've noticed you guys like to have long meetings.
Well, we found sometimes they are long and we hash a lot out, but this is the guy mentioned, a lot of times they get better as we hash them. And we kind of like being better. Just like somebody said, you can tell where St. George stops and Washington starts. We like that. And sometimes because we have long meetings.
I think the only real concern is really, at the end of the day, is making sure the kids are safe. And there's concern on, at least my part, that if it's sold to as a C1, regardless of what the first guy buys it as, he could turn around the day later and flip it to somebody else and jam something down our throat and say, well, hey, it's C1, I'm entitled. You can't force me to mitigate those if we foresee an issue, that would be a concern. So an AP or a PD commercial is a lot more comforting to me than a C1, just because of the issue with the students to and from the school.
Well, and I have an issue with those residents there. I think that we can help protect and mitigate those residents as well. Accomplish what a developer wants to do. We keep those residents whole and what they're trying to do and protect them there and our students. To me, that's the way it works in that piece personally. I stopped today and visited with your crossing guard to ask her how many kids she crosses there, what time of day they're coming and going, those types of things. And when I told her they were proposing a commercial use, she said, oh no. I said, well, just a minute here. There's some things we can do. There's some ways I think that we can work together. If
certainly PDC is consistent with what's going on the other couple of corners. So
They have different terms, but it's the same, pretty much the same thing.
similar.
So what you'd recommend in this process is that we reapply for a PD
No.
commercial?
I wouldn't say that you'd have to even reapply. I think that that's what the council could vote on and say, we would approve, we'll approve, our motion is to approve a PD commercial.
Yep.
You're through the process, you're there, you've gone through the hearings.
That keeps your
PD commercial
timeline.
is less obtrusive than C1 is. It keeps you whole and you're done with the process.
And I just want to mention too, before it goes any further, that I've spoken with Mr. Gardner about the kids and the safety, and they're certainly aware of those things too. And they express concern and wanting to make sure that those things are taken care of. So that might just be a win-win-win.
I'm not worried if the school district were to develop the property, and I'm not necessarily concerned if we know who the buyer is, but we've had too many projects jammed down our throats as a council lately from people that got entitlements and then did exactly what we didn't want to see happen, or exactly what they expressed to us wasn't going to happen. And so it's got us a little bit gun shy, or got me a little bit gun shy on that.
And you like meetings, I can tell.
We just want you to come back and hang with us.
We just, yeah,
That's
we'd
it.
like to hang out with you.
Like I say,
You see what we're saying, though.
No,
certainly I would think
I
if
understand.
anybody could feel the importance of keeping kids safe at the school district.
Right.
I mean, if anybody could see that, and especially as Merrill Road widens out and gets busier, that traffic's going to be coming faster through there. So people coming and going are going to be paying more attention to traffic than they are kids. That's the facts.
And Brent,
So it just becomes more troublesome to where if we go PD, that allows us to work with that developer to say, okay, how are we going to keep the kids safe? You know, do we develop a kid's path to where they're out of the driveways and those types of things that we can now get our kids to where they need to go and get them there safely?
And if you actually pursue a library, it gives you some after-school activities for some of those kids that don't have homes to go to yet. You know, it creates opportunity for collaboration with the school. But anyway, like I said, I don't know
And I'm sure the
property's big
county
enough,
would want to pay high dollar for that, for that library site.
Especially
but they'll just
commercial.
trade you land for a rodeo place or something.
But I mean, to me, that the district is kept whole by doing it. They get their commercial zoning that they're looking for. They keep their values in it. We protect our neighborhood and our kids. I just don't see a downside to it personally.
I think we just want to know too, that if we were to do that, and with the idea of putting a walking path at the north end of the property, if the school district would be amicable to allowing a gate to be there. We understand the lockdown and all that kind of stuff, but that would be, it would only work if we could get through that gate.
Well, I think that when we met with the school district, if you recall, we had that discussion with them concerning Horizon. And they said, hey, absolutely, we'll put gates in the back of those places to get those kids into those. So I think the district, at least the school board, has spoken concerning that to us.
But I do know they want to be able to lock it down.
Well, they may do. I mean, you look at Washington Elementary, the same thing. You got one out of our community center right into the field. It'd be no different into this one here across the field.
And there's a-
Horizon's the same way
And I
across the
guess,
field.
and there is a gate with a lock.
Yeah,
so
no,
they
I'm
can-
saying, yes,
so they
certainly
can
you
lock
could
it.
gate it. Yes, certainly you could. But it gives those kids an avenue to get to school out of harm's way.
Once you've sold it, the school district's no longer accountable, but the city is. And therefore, we want some ability to control what happens or to influence what happens so that we can
Clear,
do it.
and Drew, this is what Drew and I are mentioning, so with if it comes into, first of all, you absolutely have the right under state law to take a zone, suggest a new one, and discuss it out. That's not even an issue. With our PUDs, typically, you bring them in the site plan, even when it's commercial.
We've discussed that change. This council's gone there already.
Has it been changed though?
That's the decision that's been.
Well, the ordinance hasn't been signed.
Yeah, it
yet,
hasn't.
but-
Okay.
Well, so just to be clear, and
But
just
that's
to make
the
sure
intent.
that you have, so if we're walking down that road, so to make sure, one, the council's concerns are addressed, and that is that by doing that, we are locking some things in, some preliminary things that we are locking in that you're mostly concerned about, and so that someone else can't, and for those citizens that came in and had some of those same concerns that you've been addressing. And from what Drew said, Drew would be comfortable with the fact that if the PUD came in with certain parameter conditions that will be to some extent locked in like you would a typical site plan, but just locking in the ones that you're concerned about, the basics. I just don't want to get too far down and then we just leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I think that this council's kind of been pretty straightforward with our desire that we allow the zones to be changed and come back, just similar like we do with our regular zoning with preliminary plans, to come in with then the PUD approval process of the plan, the site plan approval process. So they certainly could get the zoning. And so they're moving forward.
I may have misunderstood our conversation.
No, well, we got 2 weeks in. I mean, anyway, this is public hearing night. So anyway, that's just thoughts. I'd love to hear the district's thoughts, just food for thoughts.
Are you good with PD commercial?
But we've got a couple of weeks that, discussion can go forward and talk and.
I'm Mel Ashcraft. I work for the school district, pretty involved in all of these projects. To go back a little bit, as I understood it, PDC is not available in your New York City right now.
Well, actually, it is, yeah.
It's just we're revising all of our PUDs, but I do have a PD commercial. People don't tucked away in my residential zones, you know, by some accident.
Yeah.
But it's always been there.
Well, when we met with staff said, you know, they suggested we go with the C one. And the reason we're doing this is because, you know, to us, and we need the money right now. We're at the end of our bond. We've got another elementary to build, and we're trying to get the money together to do that. If we're going to keep up with the kids, we need to start that in March. And so we're kind of scrabbling right now and looking for options. This is a piece of property that we have available to us to raise that money. And so that's why we met with staff and said, you know, what can we do with this?
But we also understand that you have a real concern with what goes in next to your school too.
Well, and you know, I can't speak to exactly what be allowed there, but I know there's some pretty big restrictions on what kind of businesses can go in next to schools and churches, and restricts on what kind of products they can sell. And I would think that that's going to weed out a big portion of the ones that would be a concern. You know, and like we have a party interested that would like an office building there. Like you say, we can't, once we sell it, he can do whatever he wants. But, you know,
So that's when it becomes our responsibility. So that's why
I mean,
I think we can
from our point of
resolve
view
this.
is we're trying to do what's best for the school district right now.
Sure.
I understand you say that there's a restriction on what can go in next to a school, but you're putting a fueling station right next to Bloomington Hills Elementary and Desert Hills High School and in the intermediate school.
Yeah, that's true. Just found that out. Yeah, but they're doing that. So,
say that again.
I just found that out. Yeah, we saw them over there start working. We had to go ask them what it was. So, but,
right across the street.
Yeah, right in between the middle school, high school, and my office. So.
Yep. They got it done there. I'd rather have a little bit more safety net on this parcel.
Yeah. Well, our concern, our main goal right now is to get the maximum amount of money that we can for that piece of property. That's what our reasoning is if it's a good commercial zone, and it appears to be because of all the other three corners there, it's an ideal place for commercial, then why should we be denied that when it's available everywhere else?
Yeah, the only thing you've got different is you've got those kids going to your school. Those other corners don't have kids going down their sidewalk to them. That's the main difference.
Well, kids are going to be coming from all directions eventually.
Yeah, but they're all on that one sidewalk. They're not going this way and they're not going that way. They're on your sidewalk. Everything funnels.
No, that's
to
not
your
our sidewalk. That's a city sidewalk.
Okay, in front of your piece of property.
Next to our property, but that's a city sidewalk.
Well, okay. I'm just saying that, and that's the biggest concern is you're funneling that whole neighborhood's kids down that one sidewalk, and that becomes the difference with what you're seeing on those other corners. I mean, if I have those other corners, I don't have kids to worry about on those other corners.
I think what he's saying, eventually you will see homes on all sides of that intersection.
No, you won't see, you'll see businesses.
No, not on the
you'll see
corner.
business.
Not on the corner, but back behind the business.
Yeah.
No, that's all planned commercial. This is all commercial until you get back behind those businesses, then you start the homes.
Yeah, then there'll be homes.
So you've got commercial down, basically that road is fronted by commercial.
And we do try to make sure that we don't have kids crossing major thoroughfares. So, you know, if we had to, we changed the boundaries so they wouldn't come from the south, because we don't like to see them crossing, you know, a major artery like Merrill Road. When we bought the property, that was a 66-foot right of way, and we never intended to be on a major artery.
Is that school at capacity for students?
The
school?
They're built for 600.
Is it at capacity now?
It's over capacity. All of our elementaries right now are over capacity. That's why we need to build another one as soon as possible.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Have you got something different to say?
Yeah. Sure. There's a motion on the table.
PDC, it's still commercial uses and it's still inappropriate on that corner. This corner is a buffer to those single family neighborhoods. AP uses are used during the same time of day when people are at work. AP uses are offices, businesses that are usually closed in the evening, and it would be appropriate to put that next to residential. We are not like St. George. We are a different city. We're primarily residential, and this corner is a buffer zone to very nice single-family homes. And so there are no entitlements right now for them to go commercial. They are entitled to RA1, which are residential agriculture 1 acre. They've said it themselves, they need to get the maximum amount of money. So the minute you zone it commercial, they can sell it to whomever they want. Although I love the school district, I trust the school district, they will sell it to anyone who will build a business there that's open night and day. It's not limited to administrative professional offices that are usually open during the day and closed at night, which would be more appropriate abutting these single
The thing
family
you
homes.
say is usually, and that's the whole, even if it goes AP,
AP.
you lose control again.
You do,
Because they can, so they put an office building there, they put, the whole backside is lit up right into your backyards.
well,
See, with PCD, we
that-
can control it.
yes, but it's still commercial, and you
It's-
cannot control the hours of operation of a commercial business. I just think it's less control than,
No,
you have a,
PCDs, we have a lot of control.
you have a use list, though, in an administrative professional that
You're right.
limits the type of business.
The type of business, but it still
Yes.
doesn't limit the hours of operation or the way you're impacting the neighborhood.
Well, if you have a,
lose- you
if
lose
you
that
have a
thing.
PDC, like he said in his residential zone, I didn't find that in your code when I was looking at it today. And I still have a problem with notice, because this notice says you're changing it to C2, and it sounds like we're changing it to C1. However, if you have a PD zone that can go over any project, because he says you have one in your residential zone, then put a PD over the AP zone. And then you can control the hours of operation on the
And
AP
it's a
zone.
separate zone, and the PD gives us more.
Yeah, we don't have a
control over
PD,
what
AP, we have a PD commercial, which cover, AP can come in there under the PDs, under the PD commercial zone. AP can be part of that.
Well, then limit the PDC to administrative professional uses inside that lot, so it makes even more sense. Protect the school, protect the single-family residents. You are the zoning gurus. You have all of the discretion to do what's right on that corner and do right by your residents. Thanks.
I move we
Yeah,
close
and
this.
Mel wants more.
Sorry.
Yeah, but I'll restate it because we got to get it in the record. So the question was clarifying what I said to the city council regarding zone changes under state law. And yes, under state law, for a zone change, the state legislature has given the city council the authority to approve zones. I mean, requirement is it has to go to the planning commission first, but they've given them the authority to approve as they are, modify and approve, or change the zone and approve. It's given them that authority. This council hasn't done that very often, but there's not that often when you have these, kind of crossover zonings that apply, or frankly, as good as comments from the owners and the community that sometimes are helpful.
So your answer to that is yes.
Yeah, you can.
The non-attorney answer is yes.
I'd just like to say, as we didn't understand that before, but we are concerned about what would go there next to our building, and we would be fine with the PDC.
Thanks, Mel. Any other questions or comments?
I made the motion, and then she made the motion, so I'll second her motion.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to close this public hearing.
Turek, aye.
Nice night.
Bellis and I.
Granger, aye.
Maybe Mayor, just might we want to let them know that 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
It sets for, then the decision will be made in 2 weeks.
Resolution item 9, consideration to approve a resolution approving the amendment of Exhibit C to the transmission service agreement for the UAMP Central St. George 138 kV transmission project to add additional facilities and related matters. Related
Yeah,
matters.
they
I
all
like
lead.
that, Ray.
The resolution addresses two areas of the Central St. George project. The first one is Rocky Mountain Power is building a new substation down by the shooting park called Purgatory. And so this will add the UAMPS facilities that are needed in order to connect to that substation. And then the second area is to add, they're going to energize the fourth circuit from the central substation up by Central down to the St. George sub. And so Exhibit C, if, I don't know how all this stuff works. So. I'll get that. Yes, so the first part there describes the facilities and the exhibit itself. Really, there's two areas that get changed. This item G has highlighted areas, the language. The Mill Creek line was already there, but we are interconnecting it, making one line basically into three. And then it also adds this energization of the fourth circuit central. The cost allocations will come back before the council for approval under Exhibit A. I know it's probably confusing. This just describes the facilities that are to be included in that UAMPS project.
Do you see it? Obviously, you probably don't see it being cost prohibitive or.
No, actually, to be quite honest, UAMPS has done a very, very good job. The lion's share of the Purgatory project is going to be paid for by Rocky Mountain and under their rate base, basically paid by our transmission rates. And so most of the UAMPS facility is just to interconnect the new substation to our existing lines. And so from a cost standpoint, it will be, we should be doing cartwheels, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Could be a lot more costly. So, any questions? I know it's pretty quick, and I don't know if you've had a chance to read it, but.
Yeah, if there's no more discussion, any questions? If not, I'll make a motion that we approve the amendment of Exhibit C to the Transmission Service Agreement for the UAMP Central St. George 138 kV transmission project with those items as is noted by our Power Director, Rick Hansen.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Ivy, aye.
Granger, aye.
Belliston, aye.
Nice and I.
Turek, aye.
Thank you, and thanks,
Thank you.
Rick. Item 10, ordinances, consideration to approve an ordinance to approve a zone change request, Z-17-28, to change zoning designation from PCD and O open space to C2, service commercial, located approximately 1100 East Washington Parkway, applicant Dean Terry.
Mayor, with that, since we heard this 2 weeks ago at our public hearing, and to hear that our Sitla group and the applicant have come together and worked out those challenges, which I applaud both parties for, I'm going to make the motion that we approve a zone change request from Z-17-28 to change zoning designation from PCD to and open space to C2 commercial, located approximately 1100 East Washington Parkway.
I'll gladly second that one too.
Ivy, aye.
Granger, aye.
Belliston, aye.
Nice and I.
Turek, aye.
Thanks for waiting 3.5 hours, Dean.
Thank you very much.
You bet, Dean.
Appreciate you. We have plenty of time.
So Addison went home. Thanks, Doug. Okay. Item B, consideration to approve an ordinance to approve a zone change request, Z-17-29, to change the zoning designation from A20 agricultural 20-acre lots and R15 single-family residential 15 square foot minimum lots to R12 single-family, R112, excuse me, single-family residential 12,000 square foot lots located approximately 3650 South 20 East African Addison Everett Trust.
Mayor, this one, I kind of had a little heartburn with for the mere fact that everything around it's R115. And then we're asking for R112 right in the middle of everything around it being substantially larger.
Right to the south there is Treasure Valley, right?
A little further, yeah. Well, yeah, Treasure Valley is R1 with,
It has all this, but the density
Yeah.
is tighter than the.
yeah, well, because it's
R112.
under a bonus density program. So it's R1 under bonus density.
Right.
And whatnot. But with that, through our public hearing process, I was really surprised that we had nobody speak to it. And so I guess my feeling is if none of the neighbors down there are opposed to it, it's within the general plan of what we're doing.
Is this not the public comment?
No,
that was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Great, we're 2 weeks late.
Sorry.
Waited.
Came to the planning commission and closed it. It was not fully scheduled.
Yeah, but we certainly apologize. So there are two that are opposed, obviously, to it. They weren't here to speak before, but we've received notice that two are opposed. So I guess I'd like to hear the thoughts of other council members.
Well, if the bonus densities had created similar looking use of the land, then I have no objections.
That's, I agree with Councilwoman Granger, I think.
My only concern was that with the zoning, we're still on the edges R115 and there's across the street, and it kind of sets a precedent going forward with the other development, what size they're going to be. But I have spoke with neighbors on both sides, and I think that there are advantages to it developing with the build out of 20 East, but I would be in favor. I would much prefer an R15 zone to a straight R112. That's only 8 or 9 units difference, but I think that goes to also a future consideration for other development.
Thank you.
Just a second.
If I may just tag on, I was going off the general plan is low density, it's your R110, R112 is in there. That's what they're hitting. I have seen, because we don't bring this to you, is kind of they've done a tentative layout. Most of the lots are definitely bigger than 12,000 square foot on it, that I've seen. They're rough. In fact, they were just in staff developer. With this being on the docket tonight, hoping they can then start with their preliminary plat, as soon as they can get coming in, and those lots, many of those lots are above 12. They're, between 12 and 13.5, if I remember right. So
what are the smallest ones?
What's that?
What would the smallest ones be?
Well, 12 would be the
Maybe 12
smallest
would
they
be
could be.
the
They have to be bigger than that.
All right,
You couldn't have anything smaller than 12. So like I said, I didn't peek. I've looked at it before. They were just showing us a road laid out. So when they do come and present this, they're going to, of course, tie onto this stub road right here, opposite Stonehenge there, Virginia Drive. And then they're going to have another one that'll tie in down here by Luxury Lane. And they are going to try to maybe get another one right here that's a little bit opposite of Market Way. But that'll be the three entrances on it. Of course, there won't be anything out on 3650. And stub
thing,
road
Drew,
to the west.
That up at the League of Cities, I know that some of us council members sat through a presentation that talked about the importance of connectivity to, especially, we sat here and talked about schools tonight. We talked about connectivity to our schools, to our social places, to our businesses. Obviously, we don't have businesses out here. But I would hope as they come through that process that we look and make sure that we're providing ways for people to walk as much as they can into these projects, to churches, to, you know,
Right.
wherever they may be. Councilman Bellis and I spent 3 hours last night on a Milepost 11 group that talks about how we get in our cars and we force everybody to drive to certain places and we create traffic problems because we don't plan to allow people to take other avenues of bikes and walking and
Right.
whatnot. So just some thoughts of,
Yeah, and just to let you know, the city went through and took care. You can see this. This is on the north end of this. This strip is already in with this meandering sidewalk off of the road. Kind of forces it. It allows them to be off the street, feel more comfortable walking down. Again, this was. I think we have a pipe that runs underneath here, a drainage channel, and so we acquired this land, and it's per se on this, and so.
I just know we have churches that are coming in close by, new schools that are
Well, there's
coming up the road a little ways.
Just to let you know, I think the church still owns this piece right here. That would be between their west boundary and then I always get that subdivision's name is drawing a blank to me, but the church still owns that piece right there. So to
Anyway,
speak.
I kind of
and
took
then-
us out of our thought, just as you
Yeah.
were mentioning road layouts and those things and accesses. Obviously, those other parts become important to us.
So half of this piece was zoned R115 back when Stonehenge was
Stonehenge
first
went in, yeah,
developed.
because again, Stonehenge was in before I got here, but I heard a little history on it that they were going to be part of Stonehenge at one time, but it just never came to fruition. That's why all that area was done at one time. But when you pull up the zone, it was done on the same night with the same area. It's just like, there were several owners that were part of Stonehenge, and I just don't think that these particular owners that ended up with that ended up joining in at the time. For whatever reason it was, I don't know. And that's why that piece was the R115 on top.
Well, I'd sure like to see the rest of 20 East developed out.
Well, and I can appreciate the fact that if most of those lots are larger, I appreciate that. I mean, that alleviates some of my heartburn with what we're talking about. Because we've run into these situations that they need a certain zoning so they can fit some of their layout and need 2 or 3 lots to help us do that.
Yeah, they
So
always
we
do it for
zoned
their-
the whole project
yeah.
to accommodate 2 or 3 lots.
They go to their worst case scenario and then most of them are coming back and they're, usually 1,000 to 1,500 square feet bigger because they know that they can't. Some cities allow them to have 10% under the thing or 5%. And I hate getting into that because then you got to, figure all the math. And then, what if you're at 4.888 and you can't, I just don't want to, I just like knowing that my minimum lot size is whatever my minimum zone is and then everything else.
In fact, St. George is doing that right now. They're going to a density zone instead of a lot size zone.
Yeah. There's all kinds of things
All
out
kinds
there,
of fun
so,
things.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I'll entertain a motion.
Or I was going to say, if there's no more discussion with that, knowing what Drew has shared with us, kind of takes away some of my heartburn here, that know that the majority of those lots are going to be larger lots. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the ordinance for a zone change request Z-1729 to change the zoning designation from A20 and R115 to an R112 on the property at approximately 3650 South and 20 East.
Second.
A motion and a second.
IBI.
Granger, aye.
Bellis and I.
Nice night.
Turek, aye.
All right, that is approved. Thanks, you guys, for waiting 3.5 hours. Okay, anything to report from your assigned committees? We do have
Actually,
a,
you've got one more.
oh, I'm sorry, Rick.
He's waited all night. You're going to cut him off.
Well, the line was real short, too.
Heck of a way to treat the new guy, huh, Rick?
Okay, item C, I apologize, Rick. Consideration to approve an amendment to the net metering ordinance. Power Director, Rick.
Okay, the original net metering ordinance had a cap the limit of net metering at 500 kilowatts. And I think it was the first net metering I approved, put us at or just barely over the 500. And so this change only changes the 500 kW limit to 1,000. And I had spoke previously with Kelly of why the 500 was in there, and it was just a off ramp if we had any concerns or issues that would allow us to stop. I'm not aware of any issues that we're experiencing, so I would recommend that you make that change. And then again, this gives us another point to look at. And if we feel like we can go beyond that, we'll bring it back to you.
Is it 500 kilowatts citywide or?
Citywide.
Coming onto our system. Yeah.
Even raising it to the 1 megawatt, that's about 2% of our current load.
Okay.
So it's a pretty small amount that we're still limited in it to. But yeah, it's a total.
Okay.
And so Jessica keeps a running total as they come in.
Okay.
And Rick, this is pretty consistent with the area as well as kind of the industry, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, there's some with higher densities than we've got, and that's where it becomes a concern if you get in the 10, 15, 20% range. But we're nowhere near that at this point.
If there's no discussion, I'll make the motion that we approve the amendment to our net metering ordinance, changing the 500 to 1,000.
Second.
RBI.
Ranger, aye.
Ellis and I.
Nice night.
Rick, aye.
All right, thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Okay, anything to report?
Yes, from our work meeting discussion, there was one CUP from our last planning commission meeting on September 20th. And it was regarding a conditional use permit for a home for disabled adults on 418 North Main here in Washington. And from what I understand, the applicant had not turned in the paperwork, so it has been tabled to October 4th, hoping to get that paperwork completed so it can be approved.
October 4th?
November 1st.
I've got October 4th.
Well, that was 2 days
Last
ago.
week.
Yeah.
How time is it?
Yeah, it's time.
That was a week
I gotta
ago.
tell you, you gotta go through your hierarchy again, Drew.
Yeah,
Okay, whatever.
We're
I just-
employees.
Let's
We're
see.
employees. You're right. He was right.
I sent our legislative summary stuff to Representative Standard. His response was just contact him anytime we have some issues. He's happy to work with us.
Good.
Councilman Bellis done a report, just a fast report on our MP11
Yeah.
committee
I'd like to
meeting.
hear that.
We had a great meeting last night with our citizens committee up there where we basically came to the conclusion of a need. They went very extensively over the traffic studies and how traffic is modeled and shows us what's happening today and projected it to 2040. And obviously we looked and said, okay, we have a need for a project to go forward to study it. So what they've asked us to do for our next meeting, which is November, remember what that was, 16th? Third week in November. Is they've given us maps of that, of our study area, exit 13 through exit 10, and ask us to draw with markers any ideas that we may have. So as council members, if you have some ideas that you would like, Councilmember Bellister and myself have got plenty of maps that we can get to you, and we'll take them back to that committee to draw ideas, which will then go back to they'll run through the modeling process and say, what do they do? How do they help us? Do they not help us? And so it starts the process there. So
I think the other big thing that came up from that meeting was the perception that's been going around in the community that they're not looking at the actual interchange at 10 or the actual interchange at 13, but the ground between the two. The reality is they're looking at both of those interchanges and way to fix those and everything in between. So,
yeah, actually, some of the area they showed us went clear. They were including the Mall Drive underpass and the effects of that into a lot of our
for the
study.
traffic modeling.
Yeah, the traffic
Absolutely.
modeling is going clear to the Mall Drive underpass. So anyway, great. It was a great evening, and we'll keep you appraised as we move forward.
Thank you. We're going to move on to a closed session
So
to
moved.
discuss pending or potential litigation. And now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
No.
Oh, that's right. Right.
Bellis and I.
Nice night.
Turek, aye.
All right.